not that sport.
No, there's been a few of those moves that are confusing.
And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Tuesday, November 14th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by Vivid Picks, and we have a lot to talk about. And things have changed pretty dramatically since this morning. So hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live, and follow us both on Twitter. Adam, what's good?
Yeah, slate looks quite a bit different than it did for the strategy show today. So plenty of value, a lot of different ways you can go. This hasn't happened too often so far this year. You know, like obviously we've been getting guys ruled out after lock frequently, but we haven't had too many slates so far, which is like, oh yeah, there's a bunch of teams that are shorthanded.
Yeah, this is it's a little different today. So I'm excited to break it down, especially because it looks, the opposite of what not opposite, but like very different than what we had earlier. We have 10 games. We have a lot to get through. Some of these teams we're going to be able to just say like, nope, that ain't the one. Yeah. But
four different slates on DraftKings today is nice too.
Oh, that's good. Good for you at least.
Yeah.
Let's start on the game one. Miami Heat, 5-point favorites in Charlotte, 223 total. Not much to read into here for Miami. Obviously, Tyler Hero going to be still out. But for now, 14% ownership coming into Bam. Basically nothing coming in anywhere else. I'm not getting Bam. I wouldn't mind if I did, but I don't have him. I essentially don't have anybody here. 1% of Bam, Duncan Robinson, Jimmy Butler, and Kyle Lowry. That's it.
Yeah, they didn't look that appealing this morning. And you and I talked about it, in a matchup with Charlotte, you expected them to look better. Now they, like, in some ways I can see how you would get to more Bam just because you do have more value opening up. But that value also allows you to get to Jokic and Embiid at that position easier. And Miami, isn't a team that lost guys today. So they already didn't look that appealing. They still don't. I think Bam is pretty clearly the best option there. 9K at center on DraftKings. It's a little bit more expensive price tag than you typically get with him, but he has been very good this year. It is a good matchup against Charlotte, one of the faster teams, one of the worst defenses. So it's, still a team where from a matchup standpoint, they look great. It's just that they're healthy. Pricing is where it should be. And also they were banged up recently. So it's not even just that they're healthy now, it's that prices adjust. That's part of the reason probably that Bam is up to 9K is you had the game without Jimmy Butler. You had Kyle Lowry out. So Duncan Robinson's coming in at 5,400 now. We have every player on this team with the exception of Bam at 2% owned or less on DraftKings and 4% optimal or less on DraftKings, again, with the exception of Bam. So it's just difficult to make a case that you should be prioritizing anything here.
And crazily enough, the Charlotte side is the same thing. No one is getting any ownership. 1% to Gordon Hayward, LaMelo, Mark Williams, PJ Washington. I got the 3 of LaMelo and 3 of Mark Williams, but that's not even a talking point. This game basically doesn't exist to me.
Yeah, I had 0 players from Charlotte this morning. I'm rerunning everything now, but I really don't expect to get to this team. It's at least assuming people are in, because we do have Q tags. We have Q tags on Charlotte now.
We do.
Assuming that the questionable guys play, it's really, really difficult to get to anything here because, again, they're just correctly priced across the board. Every starter is 6K or more. LaMelo, is what, 8,900 or something a week or two ago. He's 10.4 now. So the ceiling is still there, but it's really tough to get there. He's the same price tag or price point, rather, as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's just going to look better. Really, really tough to get to the Hornets unless you get Hayward and or Miller out.
Let's say we get one of those guys out. Who gets the benefit there? Is that JT Thor? Is that Bryce McGowan's?
Right. So I think if one is out, it probably still doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Because it's some combination of those guys who aren't particularly useful. If they're like if Hayward's out, you can certainly say that like LaMelo, Washington, and Brandon Miller look a little bit better than they would if Hayward's in. You're removing one of the higher usage guys on the team, and those guys can soak it up. But you don't have like a sixth man here just waiting to step in and produce. They don't really have that guy. So that's the problem there. If Miller and Hayward are both out, then sure, like LaMelo looks better, Washington looks better. Then maybe you're starting to get enough minutes for somebody like Bryce McGowan's or JT Thor, but like they're still just not good point per minute guys. It's still not a great spot with Miami. And it is still a slate where the Hawks are missing half their team. The Spurs are missing half their team. There's, just other value. The Sixers are shorthanded. There's other value you can get to.
Anything else here for Miami or Charlotte?
I don't think so. I'll double back to it once I get everything run, but I don't expect to have a lot of this game.
Well, I expect you'll have a lot of this one. The Atlanta Hawks are 4.5-point favorites in Detroit, 225 total. And we got the news earlier. The Trae Young is out, and that just changes everything. 67% ownership coming into a $4,900 shooting guard small forward, Bogdan Bogdanovic. 25% to DeAndre Hunter. 22% to DeJounte Murray. 23% to Sadiq Bey. And we still have Clint Capella, Jalen Johnson, and Onyeka Okongwu in the 10 to 15 range. I have everything here.
Yeah, and I think you should. I mean, the team just looks fantastic. Not only are you opening up more playing time, but you're just removing the number one option offensively. It makes DeJounte Murray look a lot better. His price tag is very reasonable at 8,300, point guard, shooting guard. You know, he's somebody that you can play even when Young is in at that price because he's just good. You take Young out, he's going to look even better. Bogdanovic, shooting guard, small forward, 4,900. The price tag has stayed relatively low because you get just enough games where he doesn't play big minutes to sort of hold that price tag down. But, you know, he can certainly play more minutes with Young out. He's a capable ball handler. He can pick up, you know, some of the slack in that regard. Played 29 minutes last game. So again, it's not like he's on a actual minutes limit. It's just that when they're fully healthy, sometimes he plays 22 minutes, but there's no real minutes restriction there. Jalen Johnson, Hunter, they're going to look better. Sadiq Bey is going to look better. Just more minutes available, less usage. So far this season, without Trae Young on the floor, DeJounte Murray's at 1.2 DraftKings points per minute. Nobody else. Well, Jalen Johnson's at 1.2 in 57 minutes. I want to actually go back and look since the start of last season, but you know, you expect rates to tick up across the board because not only is Trae Young a high usage guy, he's also the primary playmaker. So 1.2 DraftKings points per minute for Murray both this year and since the start of last year. Bogdanovic just shy of a fantasy point per minute without Young on the floor since last year. Jalen Johnson 1.08. DeAndre Hunter's at 0.8. Sadiq Bey's at 0.9. Capella's at 1.1. I mean, this whole team just looks really good.
They do. I just refreshed my crunch right now. So I'm going to hit refresh on the old workbook here. Yeah, that should be fine. What do I have now? Ooh, that looks like it's a little bit better. 64% Bogdanovic. I got 39 of DeJounte Murray, fine by me. 24 of Bey, 21 of Hunter, in the teens on Jalen Johnson, Onyeka Okongwu, a little bit light on Clint Capella now. I mean, Bogdanovic is the guy, right?
Yeah. The positional eligibility, the price tag, like 67% on a 10-game slate is just always going to be quote unquote too high if you're comparing it to optimal percentage, but he has a 52% chance of being optimal because one, he just projects well for the salary. And then two, no matter what lineup you build, you can put Bogdanovic in it because you can play him at guard, forward, pretty much anywhere you want. And so, you know, yeah, he's over-owned. You're talking about somebody that's showing up in the optimal lineup 52% of the time. And then keep in mind, you're not actually trying to build the optimal lineup in NBA. You're never going to get it. So if you shouldn't think of optimal lineup as first place winning lineup. The chances of him being in the first place winning lineup are just going to be even higher than that optimal number.
I had him in the top 1% of my simulation 71% of the time, which is, you know, right around his ownership. So looks great to me. I have all these dudes and I want all of these dudes. I don't know if you said it or not. But
I probably don't
we might be bearing the lead here. Like, it also helps that they're playing the Pistons.
Yeah, I didn't directly say it, but yeah, they're playing the Pistons.
Yeah.
116 implied total, I think.
Sounds about right. Looks good, man. Looks really, really good. All things Atlanta. Not a problem with it at all. On the Pistons side, still no Boyan, Duran, Harris, Livers, Monty Morris, Roden, and Amudi are both with the G League team. No ownership really coming in here. 7% to Cade is the high mark on DraftKings. It's 13 on FanDuel. I am getting to a little bit of Cade. It doesn't matter that I don't think that he's having a good season. He's still a good fantasy performer for today. So right now I got 12% to Cade, and that's the most I have of anybody here. It's very scattered. I wish I had more beef stew today, but I don't.
Yeah, so just to quickly, I got my stuff done.
Oh, nice.
I'm right there with the field on Bogdanovic. I have 66% if the slate started right now. I have 22% Murray if the slate started right now. 20% Capella. So I'm 2x the field. We have him projected to go a little bit under owned. I'm getting 18% of Okongwu, 18% Hunter, 16% Bey, and 12% Jalen Johnson. So I have 7 different Hawks above 10%.
Yeah. And I feel great about that too.
Yeah, looks great to me. The Pistons, on the other hand, not getting much, and neither is the field. I have 4% Cunningham. I have 2% Burks right now. Burks looked a lot better this morning. You and I had talked about him as a potential pivot to guys like Sadiq Bey and Bogdan Bogdanovic, but that was with the assumption Trae Young was playing, where it's like, well, they look a little bit better, but Burks has that same range of outcomes. It's kind of a stretch to say Burks has the same range of outcomes playing with Cunningham and Hayes and Thompson that he does, or that, Bogdanovic and those guys do without Trae Young. So this is just a team where they didn't get news throughout the day, and so they just look less appealing than they did. Cade Cunningham certainly gives you a nice ceiling, but there's plenty of players in that price range that look good as well. He's getting 7% ownership. Pretty tough to prioritize anything from Detroit, I think.
Anything else for the Pistons?
No, and I'm just looking pretty much what I expected with Miami. 10% Bam, a random lineup with Duncan Robinson, and still 0 players from the Hornets.
All righty. Well, first thing that we need to talk about now is you guys hitting the like button. That will always be incredibly helpful to us. But the other big thing for you guys is a deal for you. The promo code is Millie. We got to celebrate the fact that Short Gamer TV picked up the Millie win on Sunday. We're kicking back some savings to you guys. Any one of our Sims packages that exist, whichever one you want, you get it for $20 off. 20% off using the promo code Millie. What's not to like there, folks? What's not to like? 20% off whichever package you're looking for on the Sim side, because that's the same tool that Short Gamer TV used to win the Millie. Maybe it's not going to be a Millie on the NBA side, but if you want to come get 100,000, you can do that. Sometimes you're going to have a bigger contest, but for right now, got to the NBA side for it, or follow him into the NFL streets with the NFL Sims tool. Either way, you can get our Sims package for 20% off using the promo code Millie. And then once again, shout out to Short Gamer for becoming a millionaire on Sunday. Sort of.
People in chat.
Don't forget to save for those taxes, brother.
Or just lose it back.
Yeah. All million.
If you want to punt some like 5K head to heads, just DM me. People are asking how many Hawks in a lineup. I generally don't set like a hard rule on that. I'm just looking at the lineups I'd be playing on DraftKings right now. Out of 50, one of them has 4 Hawks. 8 of them have 3 Hawks. 21 of them have 2 Hawks. So 60% of my lineups have at least 2 Hawks. Only 2% have more than 3.
Okay. Looks good. Indiana Pacers are 5-point dogs in Philadelphia. 240.5 total. There is basically no ownership coming into this Pacer side, even with this total. 5% to Miles Turner is the high mark. Bruce Brown is 11% owned on FanDuel. I have 1% of these guys. I'm not getting to Indiana here either.
Yeah, neither am I.
Gordon Hayward out.
All right, so Charlotte looks sort of better, I guess.
Brandon Miller out.
What?
Brandon Miller out.
All right, you're getting options now. Like,
yeah.
So what's the starting lineup? McGowan.
It's gonna be so LaMelo,
McGowan's.
LaMelo, PJ Washington, and Mark Williams for sure.
Right.
So what we're doing is picking 2 other guys.
Yeah.
Seems like it has to be McGowan's and Thor. I don't really see the path to what that would be otherwise.
Yeah, neither do I. But I also don't know who the hell these people are, honestly.
They have Ish Smith, Leaky Black, Nick Smith is their rookie. Amari Bailey, I don't know anything about.
Yeah, like I know who Ish Smith is. I know who Nick Richards is. I know who McGowan's is. I know Maladon and Thor. I do not know Leaky Black, Nick Smith Jr., or Amari Bailey.
Leaky Black was a North Carolina Tar Heel last year. I believe he played 4 years in college. No surprises that he's on Charlotte. Nick Smith was their first round pick. Very easily could start him, but they have been... Yeah, but yeah. He's like more of a guard in my mind. I'm probably answering this poorly. Like a 1.5 to a 2, like more of a shooting guard than anything else. But
so not exactly who you would be expecting to replace Brandon Miller or Gordon Hayward.
No. Probably doesn't have that kind of size. He is 6'5", 6'6", somewhere in that neighborhood. So, classic 2 guard. A little bit more ball handling.
NBA.com has him at 6'8" wingspan.
Okay. Could start. No telling here. I wouldn't expect him to be any good if he does.
Yeah,
I assume he's close to the minimum.
I would think so.
He's the Flatman 3K,
That is a good
as
call.
is Leaky Black.
Somebody in chat just pointed it out. I missed it. Teo Maledon did start the second half in place of Brandon Miller last game. He also subbed in when Miller got hurt in the second quarter.
Feels weird if they do that.
Yeah,
I could see it. Look, we're gonna get the lineup one way or the other, so I really don't care.
So,
and I don't think we have just now created anything that is like better than all the value we already have.
Right. I'll say I don't think this matters a ton. Whoever starts, like let's say it's Teo Maledon and McGowan's, they certainly look better than if they were coming off the bench, and they certainly look better than they did 5 minutes ago. But it's still really, really tough to actually want a lot of those guys. Especially, I mean, Teo Maledon's 4,400 point guard only. It's not like he's free. No. McGowan's is 3,500 on DraftKings. Thor is 4,200. So we're not even talking about 3K guys that are opening up.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to be going to any of this with any sort of like real volume.
Right. They become, whoever's starting there becomes somebody that, if they're like 3% owned, like they probably will be, they're fine as like a contrarian punt in a lineup here and there. But I don't think you're like building around any of these guys. Since the start of last season, 0.86 DraftKings points per minute for Teo Maledon, 0.6 for Bryce McGowan. JT Thor's at 0.63. I mean, you're talking about Maledon's fine on a point per minute standpoint. Like he's okay. But you're talking about like bottom level fantasy production from Thor and McGowan's.
Yeah, I really don't expect to get much of this one, even when I redo it. So we're done with Indiana, right?
The only player that I got right now from Indiana is Miles Turner in a lineup.
Okay. Philly's a little different for me, and I assume for you. JT Thor will start.
That was quick.
Yeah. I'll take that. The highest owned guy on the Philadelphia 76ers, 52% owned Robert Covington. We can have that discussion. $3,400 power forward center. None of these Charlotte guys are ever going to look better than that. 20% ownership coming into Joel Embiid, 16 to Toby, 8 to Tyrese Maxey. And I'm getting to all those dudes. I'm either with the field or over the field. Sign me up for Philadelphia.
Yep, agreed. Assuming, this is obviously with the assumption that Robert Covington starts in place of Nick Batum, who was starting in place of Kelly Oubre. He's 3,400 power forward center. It's just, it's already too cheap of a price tag. But when you keep in mind that DraftKings has been aggressive with their pricing, and for example, you have JT Thor is 4,200. It's not like he's 3K or something. Even the value pieces are already generally priced up on DraftKings. Covington's just going to look really good. He's not a bad point per minute guy. He's only played.
Covington starting.
Okay. An Embiid game time decision.
Yep.
Yeah. Covington's only played 69 minutes this year, but 0.92 DraftKings points per minute. I think if you assume he's like a 0.8, 0.85 guy, that's very, very reasonable. And he's just 3,400. Even if you call it like 25, 26 minutes, that's going to look really good. Could play more. He's my highest owned guy. If the slate started right now, I would have 82%, 52% owned, 29% chance of being optimal. Just too cheap of a price tag. I'm getting over the field on Embiid right now. All the value opening up just makes that easier to do at 11.5. Good matchup. Indiana's one of the fastest teams in the league. They're one of the least efficient defenses. Embiid, we've talked about it a lot. The assist percentage is still up. It's actually just slightly edging out Tyrese Maxey now at nearly 30% for the season. In addition to still maintaining, an upper 30s usage rate. He's been fantastic. If he's in, I love getting there. Maxey not showing up for me much. Fields at 8%. I'm at 4%. Certainly would be happy to get to more Maxey. He's great, but that price.
Yeah, I've got 18.
You have 18?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that price tag's getting up there, but he obviously has slate breaking potential. I'm getting about 10% Tobias Harris at 6,400, so a little bit under the field, but nothing crazy. The Anthony Melton, 5,500 on DraftKings, getting 5% ownership. I'm getting 4%. I think he looks better on FanDuel. When I did my lineup generator video earlier, he was showing up a ton on FanDuel. He's 19% on there, 26% chance of being optimal. Point guard, shooting guard, but only 5,200, so he is 300 less than he is on DraftKings. On DraftKings, he's fine, but on FanDuel certainly looks a lot better.
Yeah, I have 21% of Embiid, so I'm neutral. I'm over with Covington, 71%. I think he's probably the best play on the slate today, either him or Bogdanovich. But now that we know Covington's starting, I think it's you're hard pressed to not say that it's Covington.
Yeah. And if Embiid gets ruled out, I mean, you get a $3,500 Paul Reed as the new best value play.
Yeah, I don't want that to happen.
Right. Maxey looks amazing. Harris looks great. Covington and Melton look better than they did.
Yeah. This game's going to be a track meet if Embiid's not in.
Yeah.
Because Paul Reed will run.
Yep.
But I'm over on Maxey. I'm over on Harris. I just like this Philly side. So I'm really hoping that Embiid just plays.
Yeah. I mean, if Embiid gets ruled out, the problem is lineups just start to build themselves to a really annoying level.
Yes, they do. But got to get to Robert Covington. Easy best play on DraftKings from Philadelphia, and one of the 3 best plays on the slate as of right now.
I mean, to be fair, that the person that fits that criteria is like 0 for 21 this season, but
That's true. Orlando Magic, 3-point dogs in Brooklyn, 218 total. We'll get a new injury report in like 8 minutes, so I don't have to worry about that. No Wendell Carter Jr., no Markelle Fultz. We got Gary Harris out. On the opposite side, Ben Simmons, Cam Thomas, both out. Lonnie Walker is available. No ownership coming into Orlando here. Suggs is getting 7%. I have 4% of Banchero, of Suggs, of Anthony Black. I don't find Orlando interesting at all, especially with the 218 total, second lowest on the slate.
Yeah, me neither. I was getting some Suggs this morning, but obviously the need for that like $5,900 price tag has gone out the window. Nobody's really getting there. I have 2% Suggs, 2% Banchero. That could easily just turn into nothing. It could turn into 5%. Doesn't matter. They're just essentially last piece in, high upside lineup filler, but Orlando looks wholly unappealing.
Yes, they do. I do not have anything else to add here.
Nope.
So then we go to Brooklyn. Looks like Ben Simmons is going to be out for a week or so with a nerve impingement. Only guy getting any real ownership here for Brooklyn is Cam Thomas, Cam Johnson. Too many Cams. Cam Johnson, $5,400 power forward, 21% owned on DK. Nick Claxton's now 6% owned. I have 8%. But for Cam Johnson, you just have to play him today, I think. I have 25%. He just looks like a perfectly, slightly underpriced dude.
Yeah, he looks good. I don't have quite as much as I did this morning, I don't think, but I still have plenty. I have about 24%, Fields at about 21%. He played 35 minutes last game. The playing time's there. The price tag is still at a point where it's like assuming he's limited to 26 minutes or something, which he very obviously is not. He's a good player. He's a good enough fantasy producer. And potentially somebody that can pick up more production here too. Obviously no Ben Simmons, not a really high usage guy, but no Cam Thomas. They don't have a lot of scoring. Dinwiddie can, but that's not really what he's out there to do. Mikal Bridges, as we learned after that trade, can. But Cam Johnson can definitely step into a secondary scoring role too. So I do like getting him as a $5,400 guy. I'm not really getting to anything else. I have a Royce O'Neal lineup. I have a Nick Claxton lineup. I like the idea of getting more Claxton at 6,200, but I think it's just so easy for me to get to Jokic and Embiid that's keeping me away from keeping me and the field probably away from getting the Claxton.
Yeah, pretty ugly game other than Cam Johnson, really.
Yep.
He's just got to let it go. Every look he can get, he better let that one sail. 40% three-point shooter past 2 seasons. Get them shots up, brother. Will help us out. Oh, here we go. San Antonio Spurs, 10.5-point dogs in OKC, 238 total. We got some news earlier, but we're not done with it yet. We still don't know the status of Jeremy Sohan, who is questionable, but Trey Jones is out and Keldon Johnson is out. Sandro Mamukelashvili is questionable as well. Don't know how much that matters, but if you keep dropping players, it starts to matter who's actually around. Basically, like everybody's getting a little bit of love here. 13% to Chetty, 12 to Devin Vassell, 6 to Doug McDermott, 15 to Jeremy Sohan, 18 to Malachi Branham, $3,900 shooting guard. I have like little bits of I basically have like 10 to 15% of 5 different guys on the Spurs, but no like major stands.
I'm a little heavier on them.
Okay.
Pretty much the same page, but I have at least 10% of 7 different Spurs. I have 8 different Spurs in a lineup.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I got 9 in at least one line. No, Devontae Graham.
I have Devontae Graham.
Okay. Collins, Wemby, Malachi Branham, Julian Champagny.
I don't have him.
I don't think that I will like. I don't think that I'll have him in the end, but I happen to get him in that 150. Then Sohan, McDermott, Graham, Vassell, and Chetty. Oddly enough, not Bassey, but I guess that's not too surprising.
Yeah, so Chetty's the one I'm getting a ton of. It's the same. He's 3,200, small forward, power forward. It's Chetty. I'm not excited about it. I don't feel good about it, but 3,200 for a guy that's just should get minutes, and he's not a bad point per minute guy, especially on a team that is missing Keldon Johnson. That should help a bit. So I'm getting the 40% of him. It's just opening up Jokic. It's opening up Embiid. It helps that he's a forward. So I'm over the field there. I'm getting to 20% Sohan. I'm getting to 20% Branham. Sohan, point guard, small forward, really useful at 5,800. He's getting about 15% ownership, so a little bit over there. Branham's getting 18% at 3,900, a little bit over there. Without Keldon Johnson on the floor since the start of last season, 0.78 DraftKings points per minute for Branham. Chetty in 95 minutes is at just shy of a fantasy point per minute. Devin Vassell is at 1.08. Zach Collins is at 1.26. It's Devontae Graham's at a fantasy point per minute. These guys are just going to look good. I'm getting to 18% Collins. I'm getting to 18% Vassell. I'm getting to 12% Devontae Graham at 3K flat, only getting 4% ownership. Doug McDermott showing up 10% for me. And then I'm only getting to 2% Wemby. I would love to get more Wemby, but he's actually priced like a real NBA player. So he's, more difficult to get to, but we do have him going under own. He's certainly somebody that if you just have the salary, you have your lineup done and you need a contrarian piece with upside, Wemby is great. He's just not somebody that I personally am getting much of right now.
No, I'm too busy getting Julian Champagne instead of getting Wemby. It feels fantastic. Yeah, you just got to get to a lot of, and like if Sohan ends up out, like everything that we're saying just sort of like gets amplified a little bit more because they're just running low on bodies.
Yeah. So far this season, Wemby has played. Where the hell to go?
Charles Bediako, CD Sissoko, Sir Jabari Rice, and Blake Wesley are all with their G League team. So like they really are thin.
I did not know if you were naming people in chat, people on the Spurs. I did not know where we were going.
Fair.
89 minutes for Wemby this year with no Keldon Johnson on the floor. 1.37 DraftKings points per minute. 31.6% usage rate.
Anything else for the Spurs?
No, they almost look better than the Hawks to me because of their pricing. Very comparable to the Hawks.
Yeah, they just don't have the like, oh my God, you got to get that dude.
Yeah, well, they don't have good players. The Hawks, like you're stepping Bogdan Bogdanovic into a bigger role, not Malachi Branham.
I was going to say Chetty Osman, but same joke. No ownership really coming into the Thunder. Hyman is 9% to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but it's single digits across DK and FanDuel. However, I've got 21% of Shai, and I cannot say that I'm mad about that. I mean, it's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander 9% against the San Antonio team that is missing like lots of NBA players.
Yeah, I lost my Shai since this morning, and I really would like it to come back. He's the only guy from OKC I have, but it's just like 2%. He's getting 9% right now. He's 10,300. Great matchup against the Spurs. Great player. I really would I was hoping to click on OKC and just see like 30% SGA, but maybe some of my Jokic and Embiid turns into him. If Embiid were to get ruled out, I'm sure I get more SGA.
Sure.
But yeah, love SGA if you can get to him. I think Chet's a good play too. The problem is just, he is center only at 7,600.
Yeah. I mean, I still like a little bit of Jalen Williams at 6,200, power forward only. I have 7%. He's 4% owned. So we're not talking about anybody that you need to go crazy to get to, but if I can get anybody here, it's Shai, and having 21%, I am very, very happy about it. And if I lose that 20% of Embiid, if he ends up getting ruled out, I can't see a scenario where I'm not ending up with more Shai.
Right. Agreed.
Because now I'm just going to have a $3,500 Paul Reed in at center and all the money in the world to pay up a guard.
Yep. Yeah, because it changes, like you said, it changes everything. Because now instead of paying down at the wings and being able to pay up at center, you're just paying down at center and losing one of the top pay up options at center. Like you can just go read Jokic SGA and you're going to be pretty happy.
Let me refresh this injury report because we just got the 5:30, I guess. Anything else for Oklahoma City?
No.
Okay. Well, we're at the halfway point, which means it's time to talk about Vivid Picks. They are the sponsor of this show. And this will never be an easier explanation. It's simple. If you like money, you should sign up using the link in the description. They will match your first deposit up to $300. Whatever amount that you choose to deposit at Vivid Picks will be matched up to $300. It's like winning a $300 double up with zero risk. You're just immediately in a much better position by signing up. Whether you like the pick'em sites, or if you're a Prize Picks person or an Underdog or any of the other pick'em sites, add this one to the list and build up your bankroll. You also get a $25 secure play on your first play, which means if your first entry loses, you get refunded up to $25 in Vivid site credit. This will be the easiest thing you'll do. You'll be more successful signing up using that code than most contests that you would enter or most pick'ems that you would like. It's a 50-50 chance to get one of those pick'ems right. Generally speaking, this is a 100% chance to go from a $300 deposit to a $600 bankroll. Take advantage. Click the link in the description right now. All right. Let's keep it moving. We're halfway there. Dallas Mavs, 3.5-point favorites in New Orleans, 240 total for Dallas. Maxi Kleber still out, obviously. For the Pels, we still have a Q tag on Herb Jones. CJ McCollum and Larry Nance are both out. 10% ownership to Kyrie is the high mark for Dallas. 6 coming into Luka. I have 11. That'll work. 5 to Tim Hardaway. I assume you have 55. What are you doing with the Mavs?
Ignoring them mostly. I have 8% Luka, so pretty much with the field there. 11-8. He doesn't project as well as Jokic or Embiid in that same price range, but still clearly a fantasy monster and a perfect piece if you just have the salary and you want that to be your contrarian piece. Very live to be the highest scoring player on the slate at very low ownership. But it's difficult to get to him a lot at the expense of more Jokic and Embiid. So I'm getting to Luka. I don't have any Kyrie. He's 10% owned at 8,700. Pretty fair price tag. Point guard, shooting guard. I think it's a solid play. I just don't have him. I think just because I'm kind of going more stars and scrubs right now. I have so much Jokic. I have so much Embiid. I have 8% Luka. I think it's kind of just I'm not getting to a lot of that mid range.
Yeah, 11% Luka for me, 7% Kyrie. That's really all that I can hope for here. One random Grant Williams share.
I don't have Hardaway anymore. Like I said, that this morning I was pretty much just playing anybody that cost around $5,500, I think.
Yeah,
and was like functional. I don't need to do that anymore.
Alrighty. On the Pels side, 9% ownership to Brandon Ingram is the high mark on DK. It's 19 on FanDuel for Ingram and 30 for Zion on FanDuel. I'm in single digits on all these guys. Joe Val for 5%, Jordan Hawkins for 5%, Zion for 6%, except for Brandon Ingram, 21% of my lineups, $8,400 shooting guard, small forward. Can't really complain with that positionality.
Yeah. Ingram's another one like Kyrie, where I think he's a good play at 8,400. Shooting guard, small forward's really nice. I'm not really getting to him. I think, again, just because of my roster construction. If I do start to get more balanced lineups, I would fully expect Ingram to start popping up a little bit more. 6% Zion's my highest owned guy from this team. Joe Val's another one. 4% owned with no Larry Nance. Like, that has the potential to just be one of those plays where you look back on this slate and go like, what the hell was I doing? What the hell was the field doing when Joe Val plays like 34 minutes and goes nuts at 4% owned? But right now I'm playing Jokic and Embiid at center, and that's costing me Joe Val.
Is like, what can we realistically project Joe Val for minutes wise?
30.
You think that you could do that?
I wouldn't feel comfortable going higher.
No, neither would I. I'm well lower. I don't think you can really go higher than 28.
And he played 29 in their last competitive game with Nance. Like 28's certainly reasonable. He played 14 minutes in the first half last game. That was a game that did have Nance. They closed the first half with Zion.
Like, I'm with you. I think we could very easily be like, oh, Joe Val played 33 minutes. He is fully necessary. Or they just keep doing weird shit and he plays like 23 minutes. They give Cody Zeller a rotation and a half. They give Jeremiah Robinson Earl a rotation and a half. And like all of it looks like shit.
So he's played 15 games without Nance since the start of last season. He's averaged 26 minutes per game. In the games with Nance, he's averaged 24 and a half. So like, I agree with you. You probably should be going like 28.
Yeah. I'm under
the
that
problem
number
here, and Herb Jones affects this too.
Yeah.
The problem here is that, especially if Herb Jones is in, you can very easily get that closing lineup of Brandon Ingram, either Hawkins or Daniels, Zion, Jones, and another one of the wings, like whoever. If Jones is out, then you start getting shorter on the wings, and it makes it more likely that they can't close with Zion at the 5.
Weird game. Weird. Yeah, this one's just gonna bother me. It's just gonna bother me. I'm gonna want Joval, and I'm not worried about it, but it's the first plot that we've talked about where it's just like, oh, I see this one loud and clear. Anything else for the Pels?
Nope.
Portland Trailblazers, 6-point dog. Go ahead.
Just because it was a good point in chat about Joval potentially being picked on defensively. I don't have the actual games in front of me, so I don't know anything about fouls or blowouts or anything. But 5 games against Luka since the start of last season, 20 minutes per game for Joval.
Yeah, very relevant. The key piece of that one is how many of those games did Larry Nance play?
Right.
Because it might be bad for Joval. It's not like it's going to be great for Jeremiah Robinson Earl and Cody Zeller either. If those guys were about to lock down a pick and roll for Luka, they'd be playing in the NBA way more frequently than they do.
Right. 2 games without Larry Nance, 18.5 minutes per game. But again, no idea if those games blew out or not.
Right. All right, let's go to that Portland side. 6-point dogs in Utah, 231 total. A little bit of ownership coming into these guys. It's a minutes thing, and I'm getting somebody I don't want to get. Ayton is 13% owned. Jeremy Grant is 21 on DraftKings and 61 on FanDuel, where he's a $6,700 small forward, power forward. Shaedon Sharpe is $1,100 cheaper on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings. He's 44% owned. Skylar Mays is around 10 to 15% owned across both sites. I'm neutral on Ayton. I'm under on Jeremy Grant. I am 2x the field on Skylar Mays, and I am not happy about that. But it's not crazy.
Yeah, I'm there with you. And just to kind of follow up on the Joval thing real quick, because I pulled up the actual game logs, the 5 games against Luka. One of those games, he played 7 minutes. I assume he got ejected or something. It was a game he had 5 turnovers. Maybe that was the game. I don't remember. I think he might have just gotten benched, never come back or something. But
I remember that game. Was that last year?
Yeah, it was last March. Or it was this March, March 2023. Yeah, so I remember it. I don't remember the circumstances. Outside of that 7-minute game, 22 minutes, 30 minutes, 22 minutes, 21 minutes. Double doubles in 3 of them. So pretty normal playing time for him.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of just what Joval plays.
Right. And if Nance is around for any of those games, they want Larry Nance to close those games competitively, not Joval.
Right.
So. All right. What are you doing here with Portland?
So the 2 games that Larry Nance was out, one of them was the 7-minute game, which is why we probably remember it, because we probably jammed Joval. And then he played 7 minutes.
And then Willie Gomez had 50 fantasy points.
Right. The other was the 30-minute game.
Okay. Interesting.
Basically,
I don't think there's a lot we're taking away from this.
There's a ton of volatility in Joval's playing time.
Yes, there is.
As far as Portland goes, I'm with you on getting to Skylar Mays. I don't feel great about it, but especially at 6,700. But point guard, shooting guard, 12% ownership, 12% chance of being optimal. I wish I was 2x the field. I have 40% right now.
Okay.
I would like that to change a bit, but at the same time, they don't really have a lot going on offensively. So I get why he's showing up. The playing time should be there. The opportunities are there. I'm getting to 30% Jeremy Grant also, which, again, 7,500 on DraftKings, getting 21% ownership. I'm over the field there. I really would prefer some of that to be turning into Brandon Ingram, for example, for a little bit more, but it is what it is. I still think Grant's a good play. DeAndre Ayton showing up 10% for me, pretty much in line with the field. And then Sharpe is in 4% of my lineup. So again, pretty much in line with the field. The only guys that people are getting to are Grant, Ayton, Mays, Sharpe. Those are the 4 I'm getting to. I just happen to be a bit heavier on Grant and Mays than the field.
All righty. Let's go to the Utah side of this one then. For the Jazz, 22% ownership coming into Jordan Clarkson. That's the high mark. Keontae George is 21% owned on FanDuel. He is basically unowned on DraftKings, as I fully expected. But we are still getting a little bit of love to Colin Sexton, 13% owned. I don't want that in any way. I hope I have zero. He's the type of guy I'd rather pull out of my player pool based on that ownership. But I am getting to 22% Clarkson, just like the field. He is very clearly, to me, the best thing you can get to for Utah.
Yeah, I'm getting the 16% Clarkson, so a little under the field, but the guy that I'm getting to the most from the Jazz. It's just still a very fair price tag for his role and his playing time on this team. It was a lot cheaper early on in the season, but it's rebounded to where it's a correct price tag, but there is still upside in a good matchup. The ownership on Sexton, like you said, is like I get playing him because he is 3,700. I'm just getting more Chetty than the field, more Covington than the field. I have like 4% Sexton right now, getting to a very small amount of Markkanen or Agbaji. Clarkson's the only guy that I'm really getting from the Jazz.
Okay. Yeah, I have 5% Markkanen, 5% Agbaji, 5% Collins. I dropped my lighter for the second time. Like my new fidget spinner. I'm constantly farting around with it. I don't know. I need something. Idle hands. Anything else here for Utah? I don't really think there's much to talk about here.
No, I don't really think so. Somebody asked if there was concern that Skylar Mays didn't start the second half. He did start.
He did start the second half. Yeah,
that's he played 37 seconds, went to the locker room, and then ended up coming back. So no.
Yep. Yeah, and then proceeded to play the final 18 minutes of the game or something. So yeah, not a lot of concern coming out of that bad boy. They fixed it real quick.
Yep.
Dude had to take a shit, didn't know it or something.
Right. For the season, 0.95 DraftKings points per minute for Mays. But that's, not including like Brogdon not being on the floor. 0.98 without Brogdon.
All right. Final thing to talk about before we close out with the final 3 games. 1, schedule for the rest of the day. Quite simple. NBA Live Before Lock is coming up next. They'll take you all the way up until 7 p.m. But also, use our avatar, guys, and hit the like button, by the way. 2,400 people, 200 plus likes. Come on in the door, hit that like button, and then head on over to stokastic.com/avatar. Hook up our logo on DraftKings and FanDuel and wherever you play. Because if you finish in the top 3 of a contest that has 5,000 or more entries, you get 1 free month of whatever Stokastic package you're looking for. Short Gamer TV has $1 million that he can spend, but he also gets a free month by making the Hall of Fame. You could do that too just by using the avatar. Costs you absolutely nothing. This is a $0 thing. You don't even have to be a subscriber of ours to use that. But if you do, and you finish in that top 3 in a contest of 5,000 or more, now you can be a subscriber. So come join us. Get in the Hall of Fame. Make sure you're tweeting those wins at Stokastic HOF. Jamore? I'm going to say, since there's no accent, we're going to go Jamore Simmons. Thank you for the super chat. Could Patty Mills see extended minutes tonight? He could. He is not a any way playable person right now. Adam, do you know what team Patty Mills is on?
So I was trying to quickly figure out. No.
I didn't think that you would. I did not think that you would.
Huh.
Have you No? You got it now?
It's not going to be one of the ones I guessed.
No? Well, here's the deal. He ain't playing. He might play. Like, you could play 16 minutes. He's meaningless.
If he somehow starts, then play Patty Mills.
Yeah. But I expect it. At best, he's going to back up DeJounte Murray playing 36 minutes today.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just not a slate where I think, even if you told me we don't have him projected for basically anything, but even if you told me that he's playing 16 minutes, this isn't a slate where I'm getting the Patty Mills.
Nope.
I think it's more likely that you just have Bogdan as the backup point guard.
Correct. LA Clippers, 4.5-point dogs in Denver, 225 total. Obviously, Jamal Murray not available for this one. The Clippers would probably be happy if somebody was out, but unfortunately, no one is out. And then there's nothing here. 3% Norm Powell is the high mark for ownership on the DK side. I hope that I have nothing here.
I have a lineup with Norm Powell. That is the extent of my Clippers exposure. This team as a whole, they're getting price points where you can at least talk yourself into maybe Kawhi has a big game at 8,200. Maybe Harden has a big game at 7,900. It's going to happen sooner or later. And obviously the talent is there for all these guys, but especially on a slate like this with so many good plays, it just becomes so tough to go that far down the board in terms of likelihood of it happening. Kawhi leading the way on DraftKings with a 4% chance of being optimal. It's just, you can make contrarian lineups without having to go that far down in terms of probability.
Yep. That'll do it for the Clippers. I have absolutely nothing else to add here. Denver Nuggets, opposite side, 24% ownership coming into Michael Porter Jr., $6,700 small forward, power forward. 22% ownership coming into Nikola Jokic, 12,200 center only. I am well under the field on both of these guys. Never feels good. Didn't mind it so much for Porter Jr., but I would prefer to have 22% Jokic. I think the problem is I'm doubling up on Luka. I'm way over on Shea. I'm neutral on Embiid. I think Jokic is just fallen by the wayside, but I'll probably have a shit ton of them if Embiid gets ruled out.
Yeah. I, on the other hand, am just not being an idiot, and I'm playing the best player on the slate. I have 48% Jokic right now, 1.94 DraftKings points per minute in 197 minutes without Jamal Murray on the floor this season. You and I have talked about it before. There's only so far that Jokic's rates can go up, but he is about 1/10 of a fantasy point per minute better without Murray, or in games without Murray, since the start of last year. This year, in the 3 games without Murray, he's over 2 fantasy points per minute. That most likely is not going to hold. But this season, without Murray on the floor, you have a 33.5% usage rate for Jokic, 1.94 DraftKings points per minute, like I said, 41.7% assist percentage. He's obviously great. He's better without Murray. And then the other big thing, he gets that like 10th of a fantasy point per minute bump in average production. The floor just becomes higher because it doesn't happen often, obviously. Like, the offense almost always runs through Jokic, but Murray is at least capable of just getting hot, calling his own number, and Jokic can kind of just, chill on the offensive end and, not have to do everything. If Murray's not in, you don't really have that guy on this team that is going to just turn into Steph Curry and take over. And so the floor becomes even higher because there's nothing really that can happen barring injury or foul trouble where Jokic isn't the offense. Michael Porter Jr. obviously is going to look really good as well. I'm getting around the field still on him at about 22%, 1.09 DraftKings points per minute without Murray, also just playing huge minutes. And then Aaron Gordon, 1.1 DraftKings points per minute in 178 minutes without Jamal Murray on the floor this year, 6.5% projected ownership. I have 10%. Very happy to just be taking, a 2x stand there.
Oh, yeah, I have so little of Denver right now. I'm surprised. It's not comfortable, that's for sure. I don't mind betting on Embiid over Jokic if it's just opening things up, but I would much rather just have Jokic exposure. I do want to hit on the super chat from CMOS quickly. I did answer it in chat. There's not much to expand on. Saddiq Bey, a lock no matter what? No. That's it. That's the question.
I mean, that you can change that name to any player on the slate basically ever, and the answer is no.
Yep. Yeah, but it's 100% no for Saddiq Bey. Yeah, Minnesota Timberwolves.
The highest owned guy on the slate.
Right. Not even close.
No, he's 6th.
Minnesota, 3-point favorites in Golden State, 217 total. Minnesota 3-point favorites because Steph Curry out tonight with some right knee soreness. So on the Minnesota side, I'm just getting like a scattered amount of all the dudes that play in their rotation, like 20 minutes or more. Towns is 5% owned. Conley's 10% owned. Gobert's 4. Slow-Mo's 4. I've got like 5 of basically all of these guys, but nobody in double digits.
Yeah, I'm not really getting to him much either. 8% Conley's my highest owned guy, and then I just have like a Towns lineup and a Gobert lineup. Was getting to more of them earlier, but obviously the slate changed, things open up. On a side note, just because we had talked about it earlier, I did just refresh ownership. We have Theo Maledon now as the 3rd highest owned guy at 28% on DraftKings. So maybe he is going to be a more useful piece than I thought he was going to be. Like, I don't know that I end up playing that much of him, but it at least tells me that he's probably a bigger part of lineups than I was expecting him to be.
So is he going to be what? Are we going like 28 minutes, 30 minutes?
I'm refreshing those now.
Talking like what? 22 fantasy points, 23 fantasy points at 4,400?
We have him at 24 fantasy points in 28.5 minutes. So, I mean, yeah, he's a 6x projection at point guard.
Wait, what do we have him at?
24 DraftKings points in 28.5 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, he's fine. What do we have his ownership at?
28%.
Okay. I expect to be a little under that, probably in that 15 to 20 range. Just
that's my assumption. I obviously don't know. I haven't rerun everything.
Yeah.
The fact that I'm already ideally, I think what happens for me is that I get, 15, 20% Maladon. I lose some of the Chetty, maybe I lose some of the Covington and just sort of balance those out a little bit.
All right, I gotta get off of Charlotte here now. Back to Minnesota. Yeah, I don't have priorities for Minnesota. I'm just gonna have one random wolf in a lot of my lineups.
Yeah, agreed. One last thing on Maladon that I think is really important. Because we talked about him being a decent point per minute guy around 0.8, 0.85. That's how we have him projected. He's played 100 minutes alongside LaMelo this year, 2/3 of a fantasy point per minute.
Not good.
And it makes sense. Like we had said,
Yeah.
It's weird to see them play alongside each other. That kind of is going to result in Theo Maladon stamping around doing nothing a lot of the time.
Oh boy. All right. Guess we go to Golden State. No Steph Curry. One person is pulling up ownership here for Golden State, even with Steph out, which is really just fascinating to think about how that happens. 28% ownership coming into a $6,100 Chris Paul. I think that makes perfect sense. He's just not priced for what he's going to be doing for today with Steph Curry out. I got a little bit of Clay, shooting guard, small forward, 6,500. Obviously, his usage goes up like crazy in these spots, even more so than whatever you thought it was last year because Jordan Poole's not around on this team any longer. But I don't really see much here. Like, I want to get to Andrew Wiggins, but can you?
He's only played 24 minutes without Steph on the floor this year. 0.4 DraftKings points per minute. Not what you want to see. Obviously, that's going to come up somewhat, but I'm jamming Chris Paul, and that's about it for me. I have like a little bit of Clay, but nothing. Yeah. I have 74% Paul, though. He's one of my highest owned guys. 1.06 DraftKings points per minute this year, 6,100. Probably comes down a bit, with just mixing Theo Maladon in, but looks like a really good play. Probably somebody I'm probably going to be one of my highest owned guys.
Would you agree with Charles Moran in chat? Moody better than Paul today?
No.
Woof. For 5,400 for Clay on FanDuel is a crazy price tag.
Yeah. For reference, we have Chris Paul projected for 20 more points than Moody.
Yeah, I have it at 18, but close. If they get that rock and jock basket out there, though, if Moses Moody can play some garbage time, you might be able to hit that 25-point shot. Really run him down then. There's no Golden State doesn't look good today in DFS, not on DraftKings at all. Like Clay's price on FanDuel is great. Andrew Wiggins is 4,400 on FanDuel, which is like one of the more comical things I've seen. That's not even an incorrect price. That's the crazy part. He's priced correctly. Well, like he was priced correctly before Steph was ruled out. All right. You ready to close this one out?
Yep.
Not much here. Memphis Grizzlies, 6-point dogs in Los Angeles, 224 total. 3% ownership to Marcus Smart is the high mark. I've got one share of Desmond Bane and one share of Jacob Gilyard.
I have 6% Desmond Bane, so huge 3x the field stand there. But yeah, late slate game.
This one's gross. Super.
I have one player
gross
from each team in any lineup.
Olrat with the super chat said Paul or Clarkson or both. DK single entry.
I mean, I have a hell of a lot more Paul.
I have basically the same of both, but I think the answer being both is fully reasonable. They're both good. They're both really good plays today. I wouldn't say no to either one of them. That's for sure. Okay. Yeah, I had a lot more Marcus Smart earlier today. That is long gone.
Yeah, I didn't have much this morning, and I don't now.
Let's then take a little bit of a look at the
Lakers. It's Gilyard, by the way.
It's what?
Gilyard.
As opposed to
Gilyard.
Oh, yeah, it's Gilyard.
I just happened to see it in like the pronunciation thing earlier and felt the need to correct you.
Yeah, it's Gilyard. 5% ownership to LeBron James, 4 to Anthony Davis. nothing else to anybody else, basically. And that's exactly what I have. 5% to AD, 4% of LeBron. I can't imagine rostering anybody else from the Lakers.
Yeah, I have a lineup with LeBron, and that's it. Certainly on the late slate, gonna be happy to get to some LeBron and some Davis, but on the main slate, it's pretty difficult. Davis, I guess, starts to look a little bit better if Embiid gets ruled out, but like even because he's not competing with Embiid, but then you also get the Paul Reed center free square, so then he's just competing with like Jokic plus Reed lineups, which is still tough.
This is a weird slate.
Yeah, it is.
I really don't want to rerun this stuff and see that I'm getting to Teo Maledon. Like, that's just gross. I don't want it. I really, really, really don't want the Embiid news. I'd rather him just be in.
Oh, yeah, absolutely want to be in.
What are we getting on ownership for Paul Reed if Embiid is out? It's got to be
75%. Like,
yeah.
Because there's not even that many good centers. Like, there's Jokic. Obviously, like, Davis is good. Joval's good. Claxton's good. Gobert's good, but like there's not that much at center that would prevent you from just playing a $3,500 Paul Reed everywhere. And I assume he's power forward on FanDuel. I haven't actually looked. I know he was last year. No, he's center only on FanDuel. Oh, no, I'm looking at DraftKings still.
AD?
Center only on FanDuel. But either way, like he's probably 70+% on DraftKings.
Paul Reed. I don't know what we were talking about. I wasn't listening.
You asked the question.
Did I?
Yes.
I gave up the moment those words came out of my mouth. Just completely tapped out to all discussion. What are you going to do, man? It happens. It happens. Any final thoughts? Anything you want to add before you and I get out of here and turn this one over to the Live Before Lock crew?
No, that's all I got. Obviously, we're still waiting on some news, so watch Live Before Lock and pay attention to that.
There it is, everybody. 2,700 people in the house, 300 plus likes. Hit that like button while Adam and I get out of here. Thanks to Jordan for producing. Thanks to Vivid Picks for sponsoring NBA Live Before Lock. Coming up next, you don't got to go anywhere. Stay on this stream. They'll be here in a couple minutes.
We are back for another edition, a huge edition of the Stokastic Hall of Fame, coming at you hot, fresh off $1 million winner for one of our subs. And man, that is awesome. All you got to do to get involved. Now, he might not need a free sub anytime soon, but you want to get a free sub, $200 value, whether it's NBA, Sims package, everything, NFL, everything, up to $200 for the month. All you got to do, and to get inducted right here in the Stokastic Hall of Fame every single week, download the Stokastic profile picture at stokastic.com/avatar and tweet your wins to us at Stokastic HOF. You finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, got a free month. Any Stokastic package you want, up to $200. And of course, induction right here in the Hall of Fame. Let's get started. First up, Short Gamer TV. Wow. Or what a Sunday. Wow. Shout out to the Stokastic team and the Sims. Couldn't have done it without them. 1 million. Short Gamer TV took down the Millie yesterday. Obviously a very sharp dude, but utilizing the Stokastic tools, the Sims, all of it comes full circle. It's a beautiful thing. Shout out to Short Gamer TV. That has to be the greatest feeling in the world. $1 million win to kick off the week. Peter Hanley's back on the board. What's up, Peter? Got to get that free month and get to play a lot of NFL tomorrow. $13,000. Look at that three-way chop in the NBA Showdown fadeaway, followed by Maxwell Miller. Got second in the 65K NFL Spike on FanDuel yesterday. Thanks to all of you for helping me become a better DFS player. $3,000 win, second place for Maxwell. And Michael Yamada, multiple mini-mag. I love seeing these because remember, doesn't matter if you're entering 25-cent, 5-cent contest, doesn't matter what you win. As long as you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, no matter the contest, you're in. Free month and up here. Minimax takedowns on DraftKings and a three-way chop for first on Owner's Box. We've been seeing a lot of Owner's Box wins pop up lately. Thankful for the NBA Sims tool as well as the amazing content. Shout out to Michael for 4 takedowns there. Braden, think I'm finally figuring out how to get the word out, Stokastic. Finished second in the Minimax last Sunday at Owner's Box. Again, the tools, especially the Sims, are making a big difference for me this year. Congrats, Braden. And Michael Phillips, Stinger 22. $3,000 win. Sims tool already paying dividends. You love to see it. How about Kevin Cutler? Biggest win so far for me. Thanks to Stokastic and the usual suspects. Haven't even started working with the Sims yet either. Watch out. Let's see that name in lights again. $5,000 for Kevin Cutler yesterday. We keep going. Big ones this week. Brett Shoup, little late posting this one. Another hit due to the awesome Live Before Lock videos. The data is real, my friends. $5K for Brett as well. And Mike Marks, Stokastic Hall of Fame, 3 fire emojis, $250. Second place in the 5K mini max with Sean Geezy following up 2 in a row. Second out of 36K entries in the 15K mini. Shout out to the crew as always. Then he had another one. He's up here a lot. Sean's up here a lot. Another mini max win. Shout out to the Stokastic crew for the best tools in the game. $500 takedown there. We go to AJJ or AJE 245, one or the other. Just shouting out the guys at Stokastic again. Best tools and best knowledge in the game that's helped me become a better DFS player. $300 second in the 7.5K mini max for AJ with Johnsy. How about this? Took down the Warriors versus Nuggets showdown, $15 slate. Thank you, Stokastic, for the tips. First place out of 11,700 entries. Some chops there, but we're throwing it up anyway because that's a nice $1,700 win. And we round this one out with Trappist Monk. Thanks to Stokastic for the great show on Saturday featuring the sharp NHL minds of Slim Cliffy and Josh. Their insight and advice helped me build some nice lineups, one of which took down the 2K quarter jukebox. Appreciate all you guys putting these in. And congrats to everybody. You've now been inducted in the Hall of Fame. Welcome back if you've been here before. Go collect those free subs. Download the avatar if you don't have it. Use it wherever it is you play. We'll see you back here next week with some more winners.
Great last night.
Yeah, fired up. You know who I went out? What this Mike's be honest, this doesn't matter. You know who I went out to lunch with today, Jordan? With Eric Lindquist. Counting down from 5 is difficult. What is happening, everybody? It's time for NBA Live Before Lock. And listen, we've got all kinds of injury situations to talk about on this show because it's a 10-game slate. We've already had guys ruled out. We've got Joel Embiid questionable to play in a game that's locking an hour from now. We've also got LeBron James questionable, a game locking many hours from now. That's in addition to Steph Curry already being ruled out. We've already got Trae Young ruled out, but luckily, we've got Matt Belman here to help us break it all down. If you guys could do us a favor as you come in, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Shout out to Vivid Picks, who is sponsoring the show, and Matt kindly stepping in place of Eric Lindquist today, who's in my neck of the woods. He is in New York City. His wife's on a business trip, so he has decided that he's tagging along with her. So Eric came over to my house today, took the train in from New York City, went out to lunch with me, hung out a little bit. I showed him around, so it's been good. Got to see Eric in person, which doesn't happen all that often. And now we're going to be breaking down this slate, Matt. And what do you make of this 10-gamer and all the injuries?
It feels like almost the first real NBA slate, like mid-season. because with the Embiid news just waiting to drop, if he's out, there's just so much value to choose from, which on one hand, sucks because rosters kind of build themselves. But on the other hand, like there's so much value that some of it's not going to be as high owned. So I'm personally of the opinion, and again, I've kind of been wrong on this every time I've said something. If I had to bet right now, I would bet Embiid does not play. They play Boston tomorrow. He's questionable here. Like maybe he plays, maybe he doesn't. Obviously, that's why he's questionable. But, I'm kind of preparing for that news to drop in a way that I think other people aren't expecting. But yeah, even besides the Embiid news, like you mentioned, with Trae Young out, like a ton of value on Atlanta and a great spot against Detroit. It's definitely a slate different than we've had recently where, in writing my contrarian article, it had to kind of dumpster dive a little bit for value under 4K recently with how DraftKings has priced guys up. Not the case tonight.
Yeah, and we should probably start by walking through some of these injury situations. If you guys have any questions for us and you're in the YouTube chat, you could leave us a super chat, or if you're in the Discord channel, one of the perks of being a Stokastic member is you get into our Discord channel. You could at me whenever you want, either during the course of the day or during the shows, and we'll answer your questions right here. And let me check to make sure there are no outstanding super chats. Do you know, Jordan, by chance, the questions we have in here, were they answered last show? We got the one from Wrap 14 in here. Is that for this show or did they? Oh my, I can't believe it. I've never heard of Josh doing his job before, but good thing I followed up to ask there. Anybody else with questions, throw them in right there. And yeah, let's start by talking about the players that have already been ruled out, Matt. Mostly because the Joel Embiid news, I expect we're going to get it at some point during the next 20 minutes or so. So that kind of prevents us from talking about it multiple times. So we could start with the Hawks value, Bogdanovich, Trae Young being out. Then we'll talk about Steph Curry. And then by then we could probably circle back to Embiid. But let's start with the Hawks because this is the team that I'm getting the most exposure to tonight. Is it the same for you?
Yes. I think two of the top plays on the slate are from Atlanta in Bogdanovich and Murray. And then obviously you've got the trickle-down effect with a lot of other guys being in play. But I think Bogdanovich and Murray are two of the top 10 plays on the slate for sure.
Yeah, so let's try to rank some of the Hawks guys in terms of the order of importance for us. And I've already got lineups built out here through the Sims tool. And, we'll see if that has to change based on any kind of injury news that comes out. I suspect it's probably going to. That is the nature of 10-game NBA slates. But I'm going to filter in the Sims tool just by my Atlanta players. And then I could really see what it is that I'm getting to from each spot. And no surprise to me based on projections here. Bogdanovich is my most rostered player on the slate and also my most rostered Hawks player. So I understand he's going to be very chalky today. But as of now, nearly an all-in play for me. I've bogged on Bogdanovich in 91% of my lineups. Matt, he's projected for 65.4% ownership. Relative to his ownership, because we're going to like him to some extent. If you guys are playing cash games, go ahead and play Bogdanovich. Relative to his ownership, though, do you like being overweight to the field, at the field, or underweight?
Well, for me, that question is going to be a little bit tricky to answer because I'm playing one big lineup tonight and I'm playing Bogdanovich. So this is a slate where, like, if you look at the numbers, yeah, he's coming in over-owned. And if you want to take a stand, if you're multi-entering and be, around the field or a little bit under, I get it. But that's not the goal in NBA DFS. Like most of the time, I know it hasn't been the case that much this year. The chalk is chalk for a reason. NBA is very projectable, and it's about getting different in one or two spots. That's my goal for tonight's slate, is playing the best plays, and then in one or two spots, getting different with a guy who still has a ton of upside, but just isn't getting the ownership.
And we just got some other news. Jeremy Sochan will be playing today. So I already see people in the chat going, oh no, my Devin Vassell shares. Yeah, so we got Sochan is in, which is good, right? So we're starting to get some of this news trickling in, and I do expect the Joel Embiid news should be in somewhat short notice here. So for me, Bogdanovich is where it starts. He's nearly an all-in play for me right now. Here's what it would take to change that. Probably Joel Embiid getting ruled out to where other value options that are kind of comparable to Bogdanovich becoming available. But the other players on the Hawks, for me, I don't have any real stands with anybody else. I'm either at the field or underweight on everybody else. So I've got a bunch of Bogdanovich, but I don't have a ton of anybody else. I've got about a quarter of my lineups have DeAndre Hunter, although that's what the field is doing. Then Onyeka Okongwu, I'm also about even with the field on him. Even with the field on DeJounte Murray, I'm underweight to Clint Capella. I'm underweight to Jalen Johnson. I'm underweight to Saddiq Bey. So relative to ownership, there's nobody else I'm really prioritizing from the Hawks. I think that if you're playing cash games, certainly go ahead and play DeAndre Hunter and Sadiq Bey as well. But guys who I'm not getting like the same amount of as I'm getting to like a Bogdanovich, for instance.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that it drops off a cliff after you talk about Murray and Bogdanovich, just because like usually the next best value piece we talk about on Atlanta is Onyeka Okongwu, and he's still only 4,500, but he doesn't see any boost with Trae Young being out, and we've just got so much other value on this slate that he's not really a priority piece or even in play for me really at all. So then you've got guys like Sadiq Bey, Jalen Johnson, DeAndre Hunter, and it's not going to surprise me if one of those guys has like a high-end game because Trae Young is out, but that's also no guarantee. Like Trae Young being out opens up some shots, but it also, makes the Hawks offense like probably less efficient without Trae on the court. So, worse looks for these guys. It's Murray and Bogdanovich for me.
Yeah, and on one hand, I was kind of surprised that Murray wasn't projecting for more ownership, but then I ran my lineups like, well, I'm not really getting to a ton of Murray either. I think he's definitely a good option as far as the slate is concerned, but at the same time too, he's not somebody I'm like jamming in any kind of real way. I just got ownership to him. Slightly less than the field. He's currently in 13% of my lineups where he's projected for 18% ownership. Anything
I have a feeling that's probably because like you're spending up on Jokic and just like that range is getting cut out a little bit. Just that would be like what my hypothesis is. I could be completely off there.
I right now have a lot of Jokic and a lot of Embiid. If Embiid is ruled out, this is going to massively change my lineups because he's in 40% of them right now. So really, really playing a lot of Joel Embiid for me right now. The other part of this too, though, with Joel Embiid, and I talk about this all the time, Matt, it's really hard to project his ownership when you consider he's been questionable all day. The game starts in 45 minutes. We haven't had the update yet. If it happens to come out 30 minutes before the game starts that Joel Embiid is in, I just don't think he's going to be nearly as popular as he should be. Now, if he's ruled out, it's not going to be hard for me to update my lineups with the Sims tool, contest generator. But for now, I do like getting to a good amount of Joel Embiid because I think it's very realistic that even though he's projected for 20% ownership, if he plays, that number might actually be like 10.
I don't disagree with you, but I'll also say that like I think the field is sharper now. So with all the tools that are out that most people are using, especially multi-enterers, like they're either expecting him to play or they're not. But either way, they're going to have their stuff set up for whichever one happens. I agree with you that his ownership won't be as high as it probably should be. Not sure it gets down to like 10%, but I see nothing wrong in your logic there.
And we've got a super chat here from Ben Anthony who says, can you break down the Warriors? Anyone in play? Absolutely. So let's go ahead and talk about the Golden State Warriors. We're going to be missing Steph Curry today. And Steph Curry, obviously massively important to the Golden State Warriors, leads the team in usage. He's also somebody who plays a lot of minutes for them. So we've got all kinds of opportunities that are opening up for Golden State. And there's one guy in particular that I think this just has to benefit the most, and that's Chris Paul, who's not coming in with a crazy price tag. Is he going to fill the exact role of Steph Curry? No, he's not going to. But to me, Chris Paul is the pretty clear benefactor here. If you get some shares of guys like Andrew Wiggins or shares of guys like Klay Thompson, I definitely think that is viable. But the way I'm really, really getting my Golden State exposure is Chris Paul is an absolute core play for me.
100% agree. On a lot of slates that we've had recently, other Golden State guys would be really, really appealing, like Wiggins at 5K and Klay Thompson, as you mentioned. Those guys are secondary pieces tonight on a 10-game slate with a ton of other value. Chris Paul is a priority piece for me as well, and nothing else.
Is there anything else? Like if you had to play a contrarian guy, like I was considering Gary Payton earlier, but then I was building lineups. Like there's a lot of value plays. I just don't really get to them all that much.
I think the guy that kind of speaks to me in that regard would be Andrew Wiggins, just because he is 5K and we've seen it before from him. He's been atrocious this year, and I don't want to play Andrew Wiggins. He's been really good in his career against Minnesota and Cleveland, the two teams that he has played for. So if you want to buy into that, I'm not. But just that price tag at 5K, like no Curry. So a ton of usage opens up there. He would be the guy. Like if I were playing the late slate, I don't know how many guys are on it or how many games are on it. Excuse me. He'd be a guy I'd have circled.
Yeah, it is a 3-game late slate. And the only reason that I know that for sure is because a little bit before the show started, somebody DM'd me on Twitter and said, hey, could you help me out with the 3-game night slate on DK today? So that's like kind of fresh in my mind that it has 3 games. Question that we have here via the super chat. This one is coming from Ace of Spade. Wants to know who my favorite options are for DK tiers. So yes, I've got my DK tiers lineups built out for you here, Ace of Spade. So I'll read it off tier by tier. Tier 1, Nikola Jokic. Tier 2, SGA. Tier 3, Bam Adebayo. Although with that said, Tyrese Maxey is in tier 3. He becomes the guy if Joel Embiid is ruled out. Still waiting to get that update. Tier 4, Kyrie Irving. Although I got Wembanyama very, very close behind him. So those are your options in tier 4, either Wemby or Kyrie. Tier 5, I have DeJounte Murray. Tier 6, Paulo Banchero. So Ace of Spade, hope that helps you out with your tiers lineups today. Then we've got another super chat here from Corey Randall. He said, if I missed it, I'm sorry, but what are your thoughts on Robert Covington? Yeah, so we haven't really talked about the 76ers yet. The main reason being is because so much is subject to change, especially if Joel Embiid is ruled out. But Robert Covington moving into the starting lineup, he was somebody who was a piece of the trade that sent James Harden to the Clippers. They ended up getting back Robert Covington. Covington expected to start today, cheaply priced on DK, also going to be popular. Is he a chalk player that you like today, and is it at all dependent on the availability of Joel Embiid?
He's definitely not a chalk play I like, but he's certainly a guy that's in play for me. Even if Embiid is in, I like him more if Embiid is out. You know, with Embiid out, you're just going to see him play more minutes. He's not a spectacular fantasy producer, but he's not Tony Snell either. Like, he'll do some things while out there. Great matchup against Indiana. Like, this is a spot where he could have like 3 steals and 2 blocks and not do that much else, but all he needs is a little bit to provide value there. At 3,400, I think he makes a lot of sense just because there is a lot of value on the slate, but there isn't a ton like, 3,500 and under, and that's really valuable. So I don't love him, but he's definitely in play for me at that price point.
And we just got some news here. And by the way, totally agree. He's somebody who, if you're playing cash games, go ahead and play Robert Covington. I'm going to play him regardless, whether Joel Embiid is in or out. He's really popular. I think it's more or less warranted just because you got a cheap guy who's going to be starting. Joel Embiid may or may not be in. Like I said, that's not going to matter to me because I'm going to be playing at least some of Robert Covington either way, somewhere around even with the field. And there are so many studs to pay up for on the slate. Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic, LaMelo Ball, SGA, Tyrese Halliburton, and, on and on a 10-game slate. And just somebody like a Robert Covington makes it more accessible to get up to those studs. So that's a reason why I am going to be playing Robert Covington today. Is less to do with what I expect from Robert Covington as much as, hey, he allows me to get to some of the studs that exist on the slate. Let's see. The next question that we have in here is coming to us from, also shout out to Malukar. Malukar gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. So Malukar, thank you for the support. We appreciate it. And if anybody else wants to support the channel, the easiest way to do it is just to like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel because it takes you a half second of your time. It is zero cost to you, and it does really help us out. So if you guys could do that, we do appreciate it. But some questions coming to us here from the Discord channel. Starting here with C Love was asking about DK tiers. Just ran through DK tiers, so I'm not going to go right back to it, but maybe later on the show I'll bring it back up if something changes. Einsteinium asked Luka or SGA. If you're just playing one of these guys, and Jordan, if you wouldn't mind pulling up the player compare tool, we'll see what that has to say. What is your preference between Luka and SGA? So I assume he has the salary to fit in either.
Well, if you've got the salary to fit in either, then it's Luka. But if you're asking me who I think is like a better points per dollar play, then that becomes a better question. It's easily Luka if you can play one and you have the salary for both. I think it's a toss-up for me if, you don't have the salary and you're just talking about like a building block for your lineup. They look nearly identical in our tools at their respective price points. So I do not have a strong take there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at my just player exposures here, and I have more of SGA than Luka, but if this is just a utility, a 1v1, I'm pretty easily going to Luka in that kind of scenario. And if you look at the player compare tool here, we have Luka winning, 70% of the time compared to 30% of the time for SGA. That's your clear option if it's only one or the other. Luka over SGA. We've also got some news here that I want to talk on because it does have some significance. We have Champagny likely to start for the injured Keldon Johnson on Tuesday. So Keldon Johnson now, we weren't exactly sure what that Spurs lineup was going to look like. The Spurs wing player that I actually have the most exposure to at this point in time is Cedi Osman. And he was somebody who I liked as a contrarian play. Is Champagny somebody who you're interested in now that he is starting?
I don't think he's like an awful play, but I don't really like it. Like, there's so much value on this slate. He's starting as kind of a filler body there. So I don't feel any type of way about Champagny here. I'll say if our tools tell a different story, then I'll change that mindset. I doubt they will, though.
If you're playing 1, 2, 3 lineups, like, to me, Champagny is going to be a guy who's super cheap. That's going to be projected for like 16 to 18 fantasy points. I don't even know what our data update is, but I feel like pretty good saying that's the kind of guy Champagny is going to end up being here. Makes him in play, but not really anybody who's really all that significant to the slate. Probably somebody I get to in a few lineups out of my set of 150. Where this is going to be the most impactful for me, though, is I wasn't expecting Champagny to play a ton today. And now, because he is starting, I just have to expect he plays a little bit more minutes, which then also means that somebody who I liked before in Cedi Osman as a contrarian play, it means I ultimately have to think that he plays a little bit less. We have a really congested wing situation now with guys from the Spurs who I think have fantasy upside relative to the price tag, but like none of them are all that good where I feel confident in their playing time. So guys like, Branham, Cedi Osman, Champagny, McDermott, Bassey, Devontae Graham, any of these guys could be the guy. And it's pretty hard for me to figure out who it is that I'd want to get to of any of them.
I completely agree. That's why I'm kind of taking the opposite approach with San Antonio. I like Wemby a lot here. Our tools really, really like him. He's 8,600, projected to be optimal 10% of the time this slate plays out, getting less than 5% ownership with forward eligibility. I really like Wemby here. He's shown upside. This is what I talked about a little bit earlier. We're like, play a bunch of guys that are projected really well and are getting love because they should be getting love. And then you mix in a guy like Wemby, who also projects well, just isn't getting any love on this slate for whatever reason. Probably the price point, guys, people want to go up to Jokic, etc. I really, really like Wemby in this spot. I know him and Chet have a little one-on-one thing. I think you see upside from him tonight.
I am about double the field on Wemby, so I am not going to disagree with you at all. I think that he's a nice pay up to be contrarian option, only projected for about 5% ownership. So if you play 10 lineups and you have Wemby in one of them, you're double the field. So I think that's a reasonable way to approach Wembanyama tonight. Next super chat. By the way, shout out to Jordan Klein, another supporter of the YouTube channel, gifting out a YouTube membership. So thank you, Jordan, for supporting the channel. And this is a clever way for Jordan to keep himself employed, because he sees it. He's like, oh my God, this is more revenue for the company when these YouTube memberships get gifted. He should do it. And then there's a trickle down and Jordan keeps his job. So Jordan, appreciate you for supporting us here. Nicholas Lynn has left us a super chat. He's saying, is SGA clearly outscoring Halliburton or kind of close?
I mean,
it depends what you mean by clearly.
If that beat is out, I'm taking Halliburton there, to be honest.
Like, if you're asking me who it is that I think is going to score more fantasy points, the answer is SGA. But like, what do we consider clearly outscoring him? Because from a projection standpoint, if somebody projects for 5 more fantasy points than somebody else, actually, Jordan, can you pull the player compare tool up one more time? Because I'm going to make a point with this. We have Tyrese Halliburton and SGA. We've got SGA projected for about, actually, the number I said, 4.5 more fantasy points. Like, that is a massive, massive gap for DFS purposes from a projection standpoint. But at the same time, also, like, it means that SGA, as you guys see here on screen, means SGA outscores him 65% of the time to 35%. So, 1 out of 3 times you play the slate, Halliburton outscores him. So I can't really say that like he clearly just blows him away or anything like that.
Yeah, for me, I view it similarly. Like right now, I'd take SGA if you're asking me who outscores who, but it's close. And I think on any given night, that the answer could be either one of them. Our projections tell the story with Halliburton projecting 5 points less. But like I said, if Embiid is out, I think that game plays faster. So we'll see what the projections say.
Yeah, and we should be getting some updates coming in. Let me refresh the page right here and see what it is that we have for. As I just realized I have our projections, because every time I want to go to look at projections, I open up a new tab. So I have our projections page up like 3 times on my computer. So probably close a couple of those. Let's see if we have. We have projections updated from 2 minutes ago. Let's look at the Spurs. Jordan, would you mind pulling the Spurs projections up on page, and then we can look to see what it is that we have with these Spurs guys being updated now that we just got this fresh one in, because I'm interested to see what we have for Champagny and some of the other pieces here. And kind of what it is that we were expecting here, Matt. We've got Brandon projected for 16 and a change fantasy points, Chetty 16 and change, Champagny for 16 and a change, and then Devontae Graham 15 and a half, McDermott right at 15. All these guys are very cheap. Any of them could provide value. So if you guys are playing, mass entering 150 lineups and you want to take a few shots at any of these guys, I think that's reasonable. But our projections really show that it's hard to differentiate from any of these Spurs guys, which I think is also what you thought was going to be the case.
Yeah, 100%.
Anything else that stands out to you about that?
Not really, no. I think you're just kind of putting names in a hat, and they're really good, like multi-enter plays, as you mentioned, but in like one lineup or three lineups, it's hard to pinpoint which guy you want. That said, they all are in play. They all are in play just because Champagny is 3K, Devontae Graham is 3K. So, it's a really, really valuable price point when you get guys in the rotation that are that cheap.
Next question that we have in the Discord channel. This one is coming to us from Einsteinium. Einsteinium is asking, is it reasonable to pay 600 more and then play Melton over Bogdanovic? So we have DeAnthony Melton projected for 28.39 fantasy points. We have Bogdanovic projected for 32.45. In an individual lineup, if you're just playing like one, I would not recommend trying to find the extra space to get up to Melton over Bogdanovic. If you're playing a bunch of lineups, you have some with Melton that don't have Bogdanovic, that's okay. But I would really be prioritizing Bogdanovic over Melton.
Yeah, same. Again, if Embiid is out, it changes things a little bit. Everyone on Philly becomes more in play, but I still would have Bogdanovic projecting more points than Melton, and he's cheaper. So, yeah.
Still no Joel Embiid news, by the way. I'm just double checking to see if anything else has come across. We got Herb Jones. He was questionable. He's in. We got the news about Champagny starting, but yet nothing on Joel Embiid. What does that make you think about him? 30 minutes until the game starts, and we have no Joel Embiid updates.
Yeah, it doesn't make me feel great about, I think about if he's in, why aren't they just saying he's in? On the same token, why wouldn't they just say he's out? I don't get it, to be honest. It's not like he's dealing with a real injury. I really don't get it.
Jordan, do you have a conspiracy there? All right. I had a feeling you might have had nothing, but you're making a face. I thought maybe I'd let you say your fair share. Here's what I actually think is happening with Joel Embiid. And it's something that happens a lot with NBA that I think people just don't like that it happens. But oftentimes players are banged up and they warm up right before the game. Right? It doesn't make sense to warm up for an NBA game 3 hours before it happens. You cool down, you have to warm up again. He's probably not feeling 100%, and he's actually warming up to see how he feels. And just the way you warm up for basketball games, all of us have played basketball at some level. Most of us were not professional. I know I certainly wasn't. Jordan Klein might have been. Matt Belman, I'm going to speak for you and say you weren't either. But what happens is these guys warm up before the game and they have little nicks and bruises, and they try to find out hey, am I actually feeling good to play today? And so that's why some of these decisions actually come right up until the start of the game. The other thing that's really annoying about it is because the games don't actually start on time, that when somebody's a game time decision, they're warming up to play. The game for our purposes locks at 7. For their purposes, though, it actually locks 7:10 or 7:15 Eastern time. And so that's where some of these games get really close up to lock, is because they're not actually locking at lock, if that follows.
We don't usually have guys questionable. We don't hear until after 7 p.m. lock. This is one where I could see it, though, just as Embiid and Philly. So I agree with you, but I'll also fight back a little bit. They play Boston tomorrow. If they were playing Boston tonight, I don't think there's any chance he's sitting. And I think this has a lot to do with that they're playing a back-to-back against a good team tomorrow.
I do think that probably plays a part in it, while also being, though, that I don't think he would be on the injury report if he was actually 100%.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. For sure, there's something. I think they're trying to figure it out, as you mentioned. So we'll just have to wait and see. I'm sure we'll get it in the next 15 minutes, I would presume.
Got some super chats coming in here. This one is from Riley Cooper 14. He wants to know Anthony Edwards or Bam Adebayo, and thanks. So this is very painful for me to say, because I very, very much enjoy Anthony Edwards, but I have to go with Bam Adebayo here. There's a pretty big projection gap between them.
Yeah, I got to go Bam too. He's playing on another level right now also, like just been in dominant form. Big men against Charlotte has been a thing since the Stone Age. So I have no doubt that Bam's in a great spot here.
This is true. The Flintstones, they were playing Bam Adebayo in DFS, especially when he was going up against the Charlotte Hornets. And to your point, not that we just look at box scores and we do a lot of box score watching here, but Bam Adebayo was not putting up these kind of fantasy stats in previous years. We've never seen this before. Last 4 games, 54, 61, 52, 73 fantasy points for Bam. We're seeing a guy who's taken on a bigger usage role this year. He also is more of a facilitator. He's got the ball in his hands more. So assists in these games, 6, 4, 1, 10. And I think this is twofold. Number one is I think Bam is improving, but also, and people are going to call me biased and be up in arms about it, I don't think Jimmy Butler's the same player now as he was in previous years. It doesn't mean that he won't be as the season goes on, but he's definitely gotten off to a slow start. And the usage hasn't been there for Jimmy Butler so far.
Yeah, that's kind of to be expected after the finals run in my eyes. Like, I think we're going to see Jimmy slowly make his way into this season. That said, Tyler Hero being out has opened a ton of usage up for Bam, and he's still out. So Bam is playing on an elite level right now, and he's not a priority for me at 9K on this slate, but on a lot of slates he would be.
Shout out to never mind. We already read that one. Never mind. I saw the gifted YouTube membership, and then I saw it was Jordan Klein. Jordan, he doesn't need double credit, Jordan Klein. I'll just give him the one credit. But what we will bring up is that we are sponsored by Vivid today. If you guys haven't checked out Vivid Picks, make sure you use the link below when you sign up, because their standard deposit offer is a $100 deposit match bonus. We get up to $300 when you sign up using the link that we have below. And it also comes with a $25 secure play. So if your first play loses over at Vivid, don't worry, you're going to get it refunded in Vivid bucks up to $25. So go take advantage of that. If you or anybody you know has a gambling problem, call or text the number 1-800-GAMBLER. Let's see what else we have coming into the Discord channel for us. And yes, still waiting on the Joel Embiid news. 28 minutes to go. And Matt, I know you weren't massively high on Joel Embiid. As this gets closer and closer to lock, what is this going to do to his ownership? Are you maybe a little bit more in line with me now, where like we could really see his ownership coming much lower than the projection, considering how late this news is taking?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the later we go on, the less his ownership will be. And I'll say the flip side of that is true also. The later this goes on, the more people will just want to back away from all of it. So Maxey won't be as high owned as he should be if Embiid is out. Paul Reed certainly won't be owned. So I think it works both ways here, and that's a great point.
What do you want to happen with Joel Embiid?
So on one hand, I want him to be in because I think it makes the slate just a lot cleaner in terms of just we already have enough value. On the other hand, I'm kind of playing it right now as if Embiid is out. So I don't have to switch a damn thing if he's out. So I kind of want it that way.
So what are you doing with your lineups under the assumption Embiid is out? Like Paul Reed, Tyrese Maxey?
Reed, Maxey, Covington. Those three guys look really, really good. I don't think Maxey or no one, as Adam mentioned on the last show, like no one in NBA and GPPs is a must play. But I think Maxey just takes a really, really nice bump. Covington looks safer. Paul Reed is a good fantasy points per minute guy. It's a great matchup against Indiana, who's going to be, playing this game at a really, really high pace. It makes other guys like Tobias Harris and DeAnthony Melton look better. Again, on a lot of slates, I think you could get away with playing 4 or 5 pieces from Philly in this spot. Probably not tonight, just because we have Atlanta. We have Chris Paul, who we talked about. Like, I don't want to use all my roster spots on Philly, but they start to become the best plays on the slate because you forget, like, this is also without James Harden, who's obviously not there anymore, and also without Kelly Oubre. So this team just becomes, depleted in the game. They're still going to be favored in. So, yeah, I think it's just a really interesting talking point on this slate, the fact that we haven't gotten it yet.
And then also, as the news takes longer and longer, do you think that makes him more or less likely to play, or just coincidence and no real impact?
I think it's what you said. Like, I don't think it matters. Like, he's seeing if he can play, and we might find out in a minute. We might find out in 20 minutes. Like, I don't think it sways it one way or the other. Do you?
Not really. And by the way, we did just get a question here where somebody asked us about Joel Embiid. It's hard to really do these 2v2 or 1v1 questions that involve Embiid when we really don't know if he's playing or not. But we did have JEW ask us for a FanDuel single entry, Embiid in Washington or Jokic or Cam Johnson. I'm going to say Jokic and Cam Johnson right now. But, if Embiid plays, then you want to be rostering him.
Yeah, I was going to say that's one spot we did not talk about, which I wanted to ask you, is Charlotte. So they're depleted here. No Rozier, no Hayward, no Brandon Miller. Their starting lineup just came out. Maladon is starting at the 2. PJ Washington starting at the 3. Like what? So our tools really, really like LaMelo. And I get it. I love playing LaMelo. He does everything from a DFS perspective. I'm worried about Charlotte here, though. Just like not really being able to do much offensively with a bunch of scrubs in their lineup.
So I am prioritizing the cheap guys more than the expensive guys. I have right now 7% LaMelo Ball. It probably goes up a little bit if Embiid is out for 2 reasons. Gives me more value to be able to pay up for LaMelo. Also takes away a stud that I'm playing. But the guy that I'm rostering the most right now from the team is Teo Maledon. And Maledon, it's whenever you get a point guard, and I know that he's technically playing shooting guard, but he's going to have minutes staggered with LaMelo in all likelihood. He's going to be able to run the second unit a lot. So I do think that somebody like Teo Maledon is one of the top value plays on the slate. He's picking up ownership, but I do think he's a little bit under-owned with ownership in the mid-20s.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you.
Is there anybody else that you are prioritizing, or if you were playing more lineups, you'd really be trying to get to from Charlotte?
No, I think it's Maledon and LaMelo look the best to me at their price points. Maledon is obviously a great value play. I agree with you. He's going to play some without LaMelo Ball. He's just not a great fantasy producer when he does play with Ball. So that concerns me a little bit on a slate with a ton of value. And then Ball himself, I think is a great spend up to be contrarian option. Like if Embiid is in and like I'm not as high on Maxey, I could see myself getting to some LaMelo Ball who projects for basically the same amount of DraftKings points as Shea, but getting half the ownership.
All right, let's go ahead and look at some more of the questions in the Discord channel here. And we have one from Justin S. Best value plays today. I mean, the best value plays are just the chalk guys. The best value, it's Teo Maledon, it's Robert Covington, it's Bogdan Bogdanovic. But if you're trying to be, and I don't think you're going to push back on any of that, Matt, but if you're trying to be contrarian, who's your favorite contrarian value play of the night?
My favorite contrarian value play of the night. That's a good question. I think it's going to be Devontae Graham. Our tools really like him. He's a guy that we've seen be at least semi-productive in the past. He's only 3K, 12% chance of being optimal here, only 6.5% ownership. Like I'm going to let the tools guide me in that one. And it's Devontae Graham.
Yeah, let me see. Who is a guy? It's funny because kind of related. It was Chetty Osman for me when I thought Chetty was going to start. Although with that said, if he ended up starting, he would have ended up being more popular. But who is somebody that is more on the contrarian end that I am getting overweight to the field to that's cheap? All right, not cheap. Okay, so here's one that what price point should we consider value?
I was going to say like 4,500 or under.
4,500. For me, it's more so in like the mid-range.
Yeah, I'm with that.
Can you pull up the boom bust tool, Jordan? Let's see what the boom bust tool is saying for guys who are 4,500. And we also got a question from Gang Green who wants to know our favorite play on the slate below 4,700. So that's also going to be kind of related here. But if we're going to be contrarian-ish, and then also best play below 4,700, let's see, what are all the price points? Is it below 47 or can it be 47 and below? Below 47. So anybody below DeAndre Hunter. I would say the best play below 4,700 is Maledon.
What's his ownership right now?
Well, no. He just asked just blanket best play below 4,700.
Yeah, I get that.
If I was going to be contrarian, I'm going to say Sadiq Bey because he's a Hawks player. You could see a real path to him playing extended minutes. I'm about even with the field on Bey, but I think he's a very reasonable pivot off of the chalkier Hawks guys like Hunter and Bogdanovich. So if you're building a lineup where you didn't want to go to one of those guys, I think that this is who you go to is Sadiq Bey, because in the scenario where Bogdanovich fails, I would think it probably means Sadiq Bey played bigger minutes than expected.
I agree with that. Revenge also, if you're into that sort of thing.
I am not, but it is
neither am I.
Just something else that is involved on the slate, I guess. Next question that we have here is from Kenny Wayne 256. Any interest in Wemby tonight? Yes, I'm overweight to Wemby, and I think Matt said before that he likes Wemby as well as a contrarian option.
Yes, sir.
We've got Draft Keem asked, how can I get a larger player pool in The Sims for 20 max on DK, or should I ride with what it gives me without deboosting too much? Yeah, if you're playing 20 lineups, I think you're making a mistake if you're going out of your way to play worse guys, right? If your top 20 lineups and 18 of them have Bogdanovich, if our data is saying to play Bogdanovich, I don't think you want to go out of your way and just play less of him.
Completely agree.
The other thing too is if you think you're too concentrated playing 20 lineups, then the other thing I would say is maybe play less lineups and play that in more single entry. But what I really think you should be doing is play those same 20 lineups and just play the top 20 projected ROI lineups. I wouldn't be too concerned if one guy is projected to be in a bunch of your lineups. And think of it this way. You don't have to diversify in every single DFS slate. The way you're diversifying in DFS is by playing multiple slates. And you want to be able to get yourself access to the best players on each individual slate, however it is you're considering, right? So DraftKings, you're using our Sims tool, which great. That's what I'm using as well. It's really helped me be profitable this year. Trust the data. And I wouldn't tinker around with it too much where you're drastically overhauling the players you're getting to. If it's like 90% Bogdanovich, you're like, oh no, I can't play more than 50%. What you're probably doing is you're probably just playing guys that are projecting worse, which means you're building worse lineups. If you don't win every single slate, that's okay. The goal is to win in the long run, not to try to win each individual slate, if that follows.
Yeah, totally with that.
Joel Embiid will start today. So there we go. Joel Embiid is going to be in. Matt, what is your initial reaction to this news? Joel Embiid in, and we got this news 18 minutes before the game started. Maxey, Melton, Harris, Covington, Embiid is the starting unit.
Well, I think Embiid becomes a great play. Maxey's still a good play. Covington is fine, and Paul Reed is not in play. So everything changes or stays the same with Philly, depending on how you want to look at it.
Yeah, so for me, I am going to have Joel Embiid. I mean, I'm going to rerun my lineups to be sure, but I'm pretty confident here that Joel Embiid is going to be my most rostered spend up option on the slate. And I'm going to do things to tinker with my lineups when I upload it to the Sims to make sure he comes in with a little bit less than what his projected ownership is. One way that you guys could do this, if you're building lineups in the contest generator, and if you're of the same mind as me, where you think Joel Embiid is going to be less popular than expected, when you're building lineups in the contest generator, give Joel Embiid the down arrow. That'll make it so that your player pool has less of Embiid in it, and that'll make it be as if he's projected for less ownership. I think that is one way that you could really manipulate the contest generator to make it a situation where Joel Embiid ends up being a little bit less popular. That's what I'm doing anyway. So I think that's one way that you could use our tools to really try to take advantage of kind of late news and how the field might end up playing this. What does it mean for the rest of the Sixers? Maxey, Melton, Harris. I know you said you wanted to play Maxey before. How does that change for you with Embiid being in?
I'm a huge Maxey guy, so it's not like I think he's out of play now, but certainly not as interested. I mean, with Embiid out, Maxey would become one of the top plays on the slate, but Embiid's in, so he's the top play from Philly. And everyone else is just secondary pieces. I think Covington still looks good, but far from like a must play or anything. So Philly's in a great spot. You can play whoever you want from Philly, but there are no like supreme priorities for me, at least.
Yeah, I'm going to see. I know I'm getting to Embiid. I'm not sure what I'm going to be getting to beyond him, though. Well, I know Covington as well. I should say that. I don't know about the other pieces from the team. And I'll see what questions we're getting in the. Well, let's also circle back on JEW's question, because he had asked us Embiid in Washington or Jokic and Cam Johnson. I said Jokic and Cam Johnson. Now I'm more inclined to say Embiid in Washington because of the other things I've said about Joel Embiid.
I still think it's the Jokic side. I don't love PJ Washington here. And okay. I mean, I think it's, again, a toss-up. I think projections are probably going to have it really close. I personally, just off my head, would take the Jokic side, but I have no arguments with you liking the other side.
Next question that we have here is coming to us from, nope, already answered that one. Here, Heflove. How many minutes do we think JT Thor plays with Hayward and Miller out? Is JT Thor moving into the starting lineup somebody who catches your attention at all?
No, he's an awful fantasy producer, so he's not a guy that no, not on this slate. Like, Sure, he could have an upside game and hit like 20, but no, thanks. Do you see it similarly?
I think over the course of all of my lineups, I might have some of him in here, but it's not anything like significant.
I get that.
Let's see. Any other questions that came in? Not from there. Let me go and double check the super chats to make sure that we can get any super chats. And we do have some questions here to answer. This one is from Cully Poston. He said, if Embiid is out, he isn't though. And then he said, Maxey, Tobias, Reed, Covington, too many Sixers for the Rainmaker. Yeah, I would say that if you're playing 4 Sixers today with Embiid now being in, that's probably a mistake. But I know that's not the nature of what your question was there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we see that eye to eye. The question is basically obsolete now with Embiid in.
All right. The next question that we have here is from nobody. We've answered all of them. So, Matt, let's go ahead and look at the LeBron James situation, because that's one that we're probably not going to get an answer to while we're on the show. That game locks very late. We got the Lakers playing tonight. LeBron James is questionable. What is your expectation for LeBron's injury status? And is it impacting how you're building your lineups in any way?
Not really. I expect him to play. So obviously he's going to be out now after what I thought with Embiid. They also play tomorrow night against Sacramento. Like if he's out, makes all the Lakers look really, really good. But I think he's going to play. He was present at shoot around. Like, I don't know. If I had to guess, I'd say he's going to play. We probably won't get that news for a while. I'm certainly not going to build my lineups around him not playing.
My expectation as well is that he plays. And this is one that's tricky, right? Because if he does happen to be out, that's the 10:30 p.m. game. There's no other game that locks at the same time. Like you would have a guy in AD that the field is not going to be playing that would project a lot better. But I'm really taking the stand like you and just saying LeBron plays. But let's talk about the other side, right? Because there is the possibility he does get ruled out. Even if you and I are building our lineups, assuming that he's going to be in, if he is out, what is it that you'd want to be swapping to from the Lakers? Because I think we should give people that knowledge in the event that, an hour and a half from now, LeBron gets ruled out.
Davis becomes a priority play. I mean, we saw it last game with LeBron out, had an upside game. So he become the guy that I would love to get to. D'Angelo Russell been playing good ball. Austin Reeves is going to see a usage bump. Probably get more minutes from Rui, Cam Reddish. Like this is one where on the late slate, if LeBron is out, I think you probably load up on the Lakers.
Yeah, we saw last game, AD saw increased usage. Austin Reeves, even though he came off the bench, still played a pretty big role. And it seemed, I kind of think this is a better situation for Austin Reeves for fantasy coming off the bench as opposed to starting. He really gets to run the second unit. There's more opportunity for usage. So that would be the real core guys for me, right? AD, Reeves, Russell. If you want to take shots on Cam Reddish, okay, I don't buy into anything that he's been doing this year. I mean, how many times have we seen Cam Reddish get opportunities and fall flat? So he's not somebody that would really be prioritizing. But yeah, really Russell, AD, and then Austin Reeves as well coming off the bench. And nobody should be, alarmed if that ends up being the case that he isn't starting, because don't expect him to. Jonathan Bennett has left this super chat. Top 2 players at each position. Yes. So I just ran one more version of my lineups here, and let's go through it. I'm going to give my top 2 players at each position. Do you have 2 you like at each position, Matt, or do you want me to just do it?
I got it.
Okay, so let's start with point guard then. For me, the point guards I'm getting the most of are Chris Paul and Teo Maledon. How about for yourself?
Chris Paul and I guess DeJounte Murray. A lot of these guys are dual position eligible. So
shooting guard for me, that is Bogdan Bogdanović and Jordan Clarkson.
Yeah, it's Bogdanović for me and Murray. So both those guys.
Small forward, that would also be Bogdanović, but then Michael Porter Jr. He's quite chalky, but still making it into lineups for me. But no, actually, I'm overweight to the field on Michael Porter Jr. So Bogdan Bogdanović and Michael Porter Jr. How about for yourself at small forward?
I like the Porter call a lot. He looks really good here. So for me, it's also going to be Porter or Bogdanović.
Power forward, I'm actually getting to Tobias Harris at power forward even though he's not projected for all that much ownership here. He is somebody that I should say, even though Embiid is in, I'm still getting to some Tobias Harris as a contrarian play. Then Covington, just chalky. Even if you're at the field with Covington, you're going to have him as one of your most rostered players at power forward. So Covington, Tobias Harris, I'll say there.
Yeah, I'll say Covington, and then since I'm playing minimal lineups, I'll say my boy Wemby.
And then at center, I'm going Joel Embiid. I think he's going to be way under-owned on the slate.
One guy, and I'm going to go with the guy we haven't even talked about yet. I'm going to go J-Val. Love him here without Nance. There's obviously risk there, and I'm a tournament player, so wouldn't recommend anyone playing him in cash games, but played extended minutes last time out with Nance. I think he got hurt during that game. Now Nance is out tonight. We know that he's got massive upside if he gets a good run. Certainly not guaranteed, but at 6,300, I'm willing to find out.
Yeah, and we see this all the time where, how often is Zion out and Nance becomes a chalk play only for it to be like, oh, well, it didn't actually benefit Nance's minutes. It's because the way that the Pelicans typically run their rotations, it's the center minutes are split between J-Val and Nance. And when you get to these, and also keep in mind, last year when Nance was out, it'd be Jackson Hayes that played the backup center minutes, but now he's gone. So I like that thought process by you. This really could be a spot where he plays big minutes.
Yeah, 100% with that.
Next question we have here is from Jake Lindland, who wants to know how many minutes will Devontae Graham play? He's been a DMP a lot. It's really hard to know how many minutes we're going to get out of some of these wing players / guards for the Spurs. It's a really shorthanded team. I'm not going to confidently tell you I know exactly what it's going to be other than this. For cash games, don't play him. For tournaments, you have a share or two. That's totally okay. He's somebody who we have with a lot of upside. He has a high boom percentage in our boom bust tool relative to what his ownership and what his price point is. So how risk adverse do you want to be? If he's a DNP, I'm not even going to say that's an impossibility. It's certainly a possibility, but there's also another end where he might play 28 minutes and be a really strong value play. It's a really wide range of outcomes. It's hard to give 1 minute's projection on Devontae Graham and say, this is what he's playing tonight.
Yeah, completely agree there. It's just too difficult. If Sohan were out, I'd feel better about it, but they've shown many times that they don't feel the need to have to play him. So that could certainly be the case again tonight.
All right, I've got my lineups uploaded here and I am good to go. No more super chat. Oh yeah, go ahead. All right, so we'll go into Discord and we have some questions that have come in here. C Love says, do you like Bam over Maxey in tiers now that Embiid isn't? Yes, I like Bam over Maxey in tiers for sure now. Madub T said best plays for the late slate, as in best late slate plays as in guys that can win me a GPP last minute. Let's see. What are the timing of the games? I would not concern yourself with, there's two answers here. Chris Paul and Nikola Jokic, they're going to be popular, but I think those are probably like the right answers there. But I don't really build my lineups and worry too much about the time that guys are playing. If the best value of the slate is in the first game of the slate, then those are the guys I generally want to play. Where I'm really reserving lineups is if there's somebody who's questionable to play that I think is going to be out. So the way that the most opportunity for the late slate of games for the main slate is going to be if LeBron sits and you swap onto Lakers guys. But that's not how I'm building my lineups because I'm pretty confident that LeBron plays. But who do you consider the best GPP plays from the last 3 games of the night? So that being Clippers, Nuggets, Minnesota, Golden State, Memphis, and the Lakers.
So I think there's a few guys, obviously, depending on the LeBron news, that's going to change everything. But I mentioned him earlier, Andrew Wiggins. Like, we haven't seen him play without Curry at all. This is a team that's going to need some offense. He's only 5K, hasn't been productive this year, but I think he comes out of a shell tonight. So give me Wiggy Bear.
We've got a question here. I don't hate Andrew Wiggins either. Question here from Rocky Raccoon said he had Terrence Mann or a question about Terrence Mann in FanDuel tournaments. 42 on FanDuel, got 27 and 29 minutes the last couple of games. He's really hard for me to prioritize. All of the Clippers are hard for me to prioritize. I have very minimal confidence in what each player's role is going to be going forward. I know they've done a lot of things moving around players' roles and playing time and whatnot. It's going to take a minute to work this out. They've got a lot of really high usage guys with only one ball out there. So I'm not trying to get to Terrence Mann tonight.
No, it's definitely not Terrence Mann season for me either. The guy that I wrote about today that I have some interest in is Kawhi. Like Adam mentioned it on the previous show. These guys are getting to price points where like you can at least start thinking about playing them. And at the end of the day, Kawhi is still the alpha here. They've lost 5 games in a row. It's a really tough spot for them against Denver. The game before Harden came over, he dropped like 60 fantasy points against the Lakers. So he's clearly got upside at this price point. It's risky because you've got Harden in the fold now. This team's not playing well, but if they stick in this game tonight, which I expect them to, don't be surprised if Kawhi has his best game since Harden got there.
Kapanikella is asking, who's the one guy we're playing in a DK single entry? The most contrarian player in my single entry lineup tonight is Zion.
I think it's J-Val for me.
Kind of some similar thought processes there to an extent. I think that long-term, one of the most interesting lineup builds that we could see the Pelicans do is going to be Zion at center. I'd be really interested to see what that looks like. And I wonder if that's something they might try a little bit with Nance out tonight. We'll see, though. Next question, over at 14. Ayton seems to never get there. You think of fade. What do I have in terms of Ayton exposure? Ayton's projected for 13% ownership. I have him in 8% of my lineups. He's not just a guy that exists.
Same. Not a guy I'm taking a hard stand on by any means. And if you landed on him, fine, but far from a priority.
Boyle 5,000. Is Branham in play for you with some of the Spurs out? I probably have some of Branham. Let's see. I have Branham in 11% of lineups.
Yeah, he's fine filler piece.
The process. Who do you like at utility in 4,200 and under no Covington? Okay, so we have to give him somebody to play for 4,200 or less, and I'm assuming that means it can't be Robert Covington. 4,200 or less. My favorite option is scrolling through players here. 4,200 or less. It's actually Branham.
I hate that price point. I don't have a strong take there at all. I was looking at that.
It's Branham if it has to be somebody.
Yeah, I'm with that.
Hef Love, is DeJounte a priority with Trey out? Not for me, he isn't. I thought he was going to be, and I just have lineups that are a little bit heavier stars and scrubs. So I don't have a ton of DeJounte Murray. My final set of lineups has Murray. Where's this tab? All right. So my final set of lineups, I have Murray in 9% of lineups. I would like to get more of them, but hey, if I run everything through our Sims tool and this is what it tells me to play, that's what I'm doing. So I don't have a ton of DeJounte Murray. I don't feel great about it, but I am prioritizing other Hawks guys.
And it also sounds like you're prioritizing Embiid and Jokic. And
yes,
if you're prioritizing one of them, it's not easy to get Murray in there. You have to basically sacrifice everything else. If you're playing 2 of them, you can't play Murray. So that makes a lot of sense to me. I'm not spending up at center, so Murray is a priority for me. But on this slate, there's certainly cases to be made for not playing him, as you just went on one.
We have M. Lee is asking us Embiid or Jokic for a DK single entry. Embiid, we're going to find out a minute from now what Embiid's ownership is. I'm really interested to see it. But I don't think he ends up getting to his 21% projected ownership. I'm going with Joel Embiid here.
I also like Embiid in tournaments because I'm with you. I think that Jokic is just going to be significantly higher owned, and he's more expensive. So it's a better spot for Embiid.
Fun Guy wants to know, is Champagne a must play today? No, he's not a must play at all.
Definitely not.
Not somebody I would consider a must play. All right. So we got to all of the questions there. Yep. Didn't miss any of them. And we are right now at lock. So quick game before the ownership reveals itself. Matt, give me a number. What are you going to guess Embiid's projected? Shouldn't say it's projected ownership. What do you think his actual ownership is?
I'm glad you asked because I love these games. I'm going to say that his ownership in the big contest with the $15 is 17%. All
right. Let's see. It is just about to lock. And then I could download the CSV and I could see what it is. So we'll know shortly here. I am going to say 10%. I'm going to take the under on you. But we'll see. All right, it is live. So let me pull the CSV. And DraftKings says, check back soon. Live contest could take up to 10 minutes to appear. So a little bit of a roadblock. What it is definitely a blue ball situation. Let's try it again. Big buildup for nothing. All right, let's try one more time. Here we go. All right. Let's get the CSV downloaded and we'll know. People in chat are probably already answering, but I didn't want to check chat. I want to know for the first time when I say. All right. Joel Embiid, you win because he came in 19% owned, almost on the dot to his. If I knew he was going to be his actual ownership projection, I probably would have played less of him. No like massive regrets or anything, but I'm surprised that people stuck with Embiid. I thought people would have pulled him out of lineups. Also of note, Bogdan Bogdanovic, 61% owned. Robert Covington, 44.87. DeJounte Murray ended up coming in 32.22% owned. So he is way more popular than what his projected ownership was, which not massively surprising to me. And with that in mind, I'm happy that I'm underweight to the field because I wouldn't have wanted to play DeJounte Murray in a third of the field's lineups. I'd rather get to somebody like Joel Embiid who has about half the ownership.
I get that. I didn't say this about Embiid earlier, but now just thinking about it, like as we discussed it, I would agree with you. He would have been 10% or under owned if he was questionable and had missed the last game. But I think most people were kind of expecting him to play, so it didn't change much. That's just my, again, hypothesis. I could be totally off.
Super chat from the unstoppable Milo Nowhere. He's asking us an owner's box question. We've got a lot of people who have sent us some winning screenshots from owner's box as of late. So owner's box sponsors a lot of our football shows this year. If you guys haven't checked out owner's box, they've got, super flex for football. So you could play 2 quarterbacks in those lineups. Really fun, different way to go ahead and play DFS there. And for NBA, he's asking us Luka or Jokic for tonight. Really for any site, any slate. If it's between those two, I'm going Jokic over Luka. Do you feel differently, Matt?
No, with Kyrie in, especially with Jamal Murray out. Again, I know Adam's spoken on this before. Not only do you have Jokic just increasing his usage as much as he can from before with Murray out, but you just get more competitive games. The Nuggets have less of a chance to roll teams. So I think we see a competitive game tonight. It makes me like Jokic a lot.
Something else that I want to bring up, because I see that Jordan Klein, our esteemed producer, put a poll up in the YouTube chat, which was who would win in a fight. On one side, it is me. On the other side, it is Jimmy Butler. And I do take umbrage with one thing in here, Jordan, because you're saying that Jimmy Butler is washed right now, and you're saying that I am in my prime. I am also washed. I want that to be very clear. I am washed. I may not be as washed as Jimmy Butler is, but I'm washed in my own right. Matt, where are you on the wash to prime scale for yourself?
Oh, I'm so washed. I mean, it's been years for me. Washed for sure. I have no problem admitting it. Getting married and having a kid will do that to you.
And by the way, we got the official starting lineup for the Spurs: Sokan, Vassell, Champagny, Wemby, and then Zach Collins there. So something else also about this is, when I was younger, I felt like I would play basketball forever. Even in college, like I was like, I'm always going to find pickup basketball games to stay in shape and whatnot. Now for everything I do, I'm terrified of getting hurt.
I'm the exact same way. Especially like I definitely was someone who like hooped and played a lot of basketball growing up, just a lot of like pickup games. Ended up not playing basketball in high school as the only sport I didn't play. So kind of my love for hooping fell off after that. But at this point, I don't want to do really anything that I could potentially hurt myself, which is basically everything.
Yeah, it's one of the main reasons I don't even get up from this chair most days, because that in itself is an injury risk. I haven't told the story for a very long time. My last significant injury that I suffered, Matt, is I dislocated my knee getting up off the couch.
Oh, I've got that's awful. I've got since we're on this tangent, when I lived in Colorado, which after I graduated college, I moved to Colorado for a few years. I lived in the same apartment complex as one of my buddies, and it was late night. We were a little bit intoxicated, and I was like, I was like in a fight with my then girlfriend at the time. So I went to the bathroom of my friend's place and was just in there sitting on the toilet, like not going to the bathroom, like going back and forth with my ex-girlfriend for like 45 minutes. Didn't even realize that my foot had fallen asleep. So when I stand up, like broke my ankle in so many ways because I just completely fell. And again, I was like I was like I was drunk, and one of my buddies had like a pain pill that he gave me. So I was feeling okay and went to sleep. But when I woke up, it was some of the most excruciating pain I've ever had. So after hurting myself, like getting off the toilet, I'm with you 100%.
Yeah, yours is more embarrassing than mine. So
For
mine,
sure.
I did do a leg workout before, and my knee was kind of bothering me. So I think I'd heard it before, and then just kind of stood up, and it just like slipped out of place, my kneecap. You, on the other hand, you broke your ankle by sitting on the toilet without taking a shit.
Yeah, it was embarrassing. I heard a lot about it for a long time. I still do. So now you have something else you can make fun of me about.
So I have, is there any point where you're kind of, and you were drunk at the time, so maybe it didn't go through your head, but are you thinking like, is this worse for me if I say I did or didn't take a shit?
I mean, I still think about that. It might change every time I tell the story. I guess we'll never know.
But then the other thing too is then it's like like what was happening in the bathroom where it took you 45 minutes to take a shit and ended with your ankle breaking?
I was definitely not going to the bathroom. So I was honest there. And no, I think the story for me would be more embarrassing if I was, but I think you could, again, it's kind of like Embiid and Jokic. I could see it either way.
Man. That's right. That's why I also don't eat Chipotle. That's one of the many health risks of Chipotle is you spend too much time on the toilet and you get up, your ankle breaks. Just saying that should be a disclaimer that's on the Chipotle menu. And they don't really pack you with that information when you go ahead and make a Chipotle order. They don't tell you that you might sit on the toilet for so long that you break your ankle afterwards. Let's go into Discord because I think we got some questions that are related to basketball in here as well, Matt. We've got one from Einstein. He asked, did I get to any Pacers tonight? Let's see. I still have lineups pulled up here. Team. Filtering this in the Sims tool. Not really. I have 2.7% of Miles Turner and 0.7% of Benedict Mathurin. If I had to play somebody like more, then yeah, it would have been Halbert. But the end, no, I didn't really play the Pacers.
Pacers are a really hard team to get to. They're in a not great spot against Philly. No injury news. They're priced how they should be.
We've got Einstein asking if LeBron plays, do I like him today? Not really. There's so many pay up options that I prefer to LeBron today. So I have, out of 150 lineups, 2 of them have LeBron for me. I do not like him.
Yeah, same.
It's like I just couldn't. I know he's already locked. Like I couldn't prioritize LeBron over Joel Embiid. I couldn't prioritize LeBron over Nikola Jokic. So yeah, for me, LeBron was just no, not somebody I really ended up getting to. Mr. Lee said he has Sokan, Wemby, and Collins in a single entry. Is that too much with Jokic? For a slate of this size, I don't think you want to have lineups with 3 Spurs players. At the very least, it shouldn't be like the 3 most expensive Spurs. If you're going to play multiple Spurs, you probably want to have one of the cheap guys in there as well. But yeah, for today's slate, I think Sokan, Wemby, Collins, I would not have all 3 of them in the same line if I was building one. How about for yourself, Matt?
I wouldn't.
Winning the FanDuel Showdown last night. He's been having success with NBA Showdowns. Any favorite captains? I assume you're going to mean for the Lakers-Memphis game, Chris? I assume that's the one that I'm pretty sure has the biggest contests. Let's see. What are people in the chat saying? Oh, yeah, they're saying I had to run to the toilet. Thought it was just me. Robot. It's good now. Yes. All right. Looks like we're back. I don't know what happened. I will once again blame Jordan Klein for that, but no way to know for sure. Just a little.
Well, I know
glitch.
one thing.
Yeah,
we cannot be blaming my internet anymore.
No, it's not. It's not. It's certainly not your. It's certainly not your internet that's powering the stream. So it could also just be a YouTube thing where it kind of cut out there. But Jordan, if you wouldn't mind, can you run a sim for us for Lakers Grizzlies, and then we'll look at some of the results to show Chris Williams on screen, and then we'll get back to your super chat, Chris. And then we've got one other question in here that we'll answer, and this one is from Debuff. It says Chetty or Champagny. I have more exposure to Chetty, but neither of them are like real priorities.
I probably prefer Chetty also. In these situations, oftentimes I prefer the guy coming off the bench, especially the guy that's already in the rotation playing minutes. So just because Champagne's starting doesn't mean he's going to close. And I like Chetty more.
Yep. Chetty. I was really going to play, if Chetty was starting though, I was going to play a lot of him, but didn't end up starting, but still somebody who I have double-digit exposure to and prefer him to Champagne. Yeah. So yeah, it is a DK question, Jordan, and let's set it to 25% to first, because the big contest for Showdown tonight, $120,000 prize pool, 30K to first. So if you guys are ever building lineups in The Sims, and I've gotten this question before, how do you know how much the contest pays out to first place? And the answer is you just divide the prize pool and the prize to first place there. So we got a quarter of the prize pool paying out to first place over there. And then after we have everything built out here, we'll look at some of those results, Chris, and we'll see which players we are most overweight to and underweight to, as well as your question of some of the captain options. I know that people like to ask us about Showdown anyway, so it's always good for that to come up. And if you guys want to get access to our NBA package, which includes our Sims tool, we do have a link for that below. But also, we've got a promo running now right now for football. I don't know if you saw this, Matt. Do you see that we had somebody win $1 million, won a milli over the weekend using the Sims tool? Did you catch that?
I did. Short Gamer TV, really good player. I think he took down the 555 milli maker with a Dallas sack. So really impressive. Nice job.
Yeah, there he is. Short Gamer TV. Shout out to the @Stokastic_common. The Sims couldn't have done it without them. $1 million. And that lineup, double stack. Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson, or was it Jake Ferguson? Yeah, Jake Ferguson was in there. So yeah, use the Sims. And if you guys want access to it, because he won with using the Sims, we did make a promo code for promo code Millie. So if you guys want to sign up for our football package and use that promo code, you get 20% off for anybody who's signing up for the first time. And we don't run very many promotions for the Sims, but we thought this was definitely something to celebrate. So take advantage of if you guys have been considering, and 20% off. It's only going to be available for a few days. We're ending that promotion on Monday. So take advantage of that if you guys have not already. And if you want to check out our Sims tool, I also got tutorials up on the YouTube channel to help you guys really navigate how to use it. It's complicated, but I promise it's much easier than what it seems to be. And I've got tutorials for how to use all the different features. But back to Chris Williams' question. So we got lineups built out here. LeBron showing up a ton in the captain spot. 45% of LeBron in the captain spot as far as our most rostered flex plays. Desmond Bane, D'Angelo Russell. If you had to play somebody who is not LeBron in the captain spot, Matt, who's somebody we'd be considering for the Memphis Lakers game?
I think the top two guys on Memphis are worth at least looking at, Bane and Jaren Jackson. I don't really think it's a spot where you want to spend down on a really cheap guy like a Gilliard, but I think Jackson to me would be the guy that stands out. I know that he hasn't played really well lately, but most of the time Memphis is going to be in competitive in games. You know, he's going to be a big part of it. So it's Jackson for me. I do understand why LeBron is coming up so much though.
One thing that is pretty funny is I look up the YouTube chat and see people going, oh my God, Bogdanovich is negative fantasy points. Then I go look at it and I realize that we're 2 minutes into the game and he has 2 points and 1 turnover. So he hit a shot after that. But listen, if you guys are not sweating hard the first couple minutes of the game, you're not playing NBA DFS right, because the entire slate is decided in the first 3-4 minutes of the slate. If you do not have the first bucket of the night, log off, start building your lineup for tomorrow. That's the way NBA DFS is played.
Ain't that the truth?
Let's go ahead and look at some of the other options here. Who's showing up as contrarian? And if we keep scrolling down, I see we're getting D'Angelo Russell. He's only projected for 9% captain ownership. And we got to 13% there. What else, though? What else is looking good? Can you sort by leverage on the right, Jordan? I want to see what we're getting to for the leverage. Leverage. So players were well overweight too. LeBron in the captain spot. He's in nearly half of our lineups as a captain. And then we are... Go back up a little bit. Was he like the only guy we're really well overweight to? Yeah, LeBron in the captain spot, way overweight to. And then other captain options a little bit closer to the field. Who are we underweight to then at captain if we scroll down? Yeah, not getting too much of Christian Wood, not getting too much of Jaren Jackson Jr. It's, yeah, really mostly LeBron at captain. So if you guys are building lineups like Chris and you want to know who to play in the captain spot, yeah, go to LeBron there, and he is showing up a ton for us. And then Desmond Bane. If you want another pay-up option, I think that Bane's the one who makes the most sense from the Grizzlies. If you want somebody in the mid-range, then we are getting to D'Angelo Russell in 11% of lineups.
The reason I think it makes a ton of sense that LeBron is just coming in more than anyone else by a ton is that we have LeBron projected not only as the highest fantasy score on this slate, but the best value play. So it looks like there just is no value that we project really well here, which, means that LeBron at 10-2 is going to look really good.
Some early fantasy performance. I can tell you that Joel Embiid, who is my guy, it seems fine to me too, right? Like I don't see any issue talking to you. I don't see any issue talking to Matt, but then it's not coming up right on the YouTubes for some reason. I'm good now. And it's not like the thing in Zoom either, where it says that any of us have bad internet connection. All right. Blame somebody, Jordan. Whose fault do you think this is?
Don't do it.
It's your fault? All right. I thought we might blame Eric here, but all right, we're back. We're back according to the chat. Anything else that we should be looking out for as far as late swaps go, Matt? If not, we could pull up Odd Shopper and we look at some bets that stand out for the later games.
Not really. I mean, late injury news can always come. I mean, we've seen it a bunch after games lock, so be prepared for that always, but nothing I'm specifically waiting on. I will say if I had known PJ Washington was going to go 3 for 3 from 3 to start the game, I would have been higher on him. Not going to lie.
Things that I feel good about so far, DeJounte Murray is off to a slow start. That is nice for me considering how popular he is and the fact that I'm underweight to him. What is not going well for me is the fact that Joel Embiid has no fantasy points about halfway through the first quarter. I would like him to score more than 0 because I do have Embiid in like a third of my lineup. So Joel Embiid, score some buckets, my guy. But let's go ahead and pull up Odd Shopper, if you wouldn't mind, Jordan. Pull up Odd Shopper and let's look for some bets. Have you placed any bets for tonight's games, Matt?
Yeah, I have actually. A couple sides I like. I liked Indiana quite a bit. I was presuming Embiid would be out. He's not. I still like Indiana here, getting 5. Spread probably moved a little bit with him in. I like the Clippers here. Denver coming back home from a road trip. I think that I think this Clippers team is going to be a team that plays up to their competition and down. And I think this is a really good spot for them to show what they are. Don't necessarily think they win the game, but I like them covering the 5. And then the other one that I like a lot, this is going to be a contrarian one for sure, is Golden State. So I know that Steph is out. I love spots like this. Team's best player is out for a game. Minnesota just beat them. Now they're favored on the road. I think Golden State gets it done here. So Indiana, Golden State, and the Clippers.
All right. So let's see what Odd Shopper has to say. Something else too. I think things are trending up for Joel Embiid. He just got Miles Turner to foul trouble. So Turner picked up his second foul, going to be heading to the bench. This could be the breakout that I need for Joel Embiid to get my my lineups kickstarted here. But if we go ahead and look at Odd Shopper, let's see what is projecting pretty well for tonight. So the number 1 projected bet right now is actually Chris Paul under 14.5 points, and maybe a little bit of correlation with what you were liking in terms of Matt wanting to be on the other, never mind. This is going against what you would like with Chris Paul here under points. But one thing here with Chris Paul and the under on his points projection, keep in mind, this is a market-based algorithm where we're looking at the market as a whole. Chris Paul is minus 115 at some spots for under 14.5 points, whereas other books have his line at 13.5. And then other spots like DraftKings has 14.5, minus 140 on the under. Pinnacle, which is considered a very sharp book, particularly for NBA props, is minus 173 on the under 14.5. So when you're doing some market, based line shopping here and looking around, I could see why under 14.5 points for Chris Paul projects well, because that is very juiced at some other spots. Let's see what else. Can you filter, Jordan, by if you go sports books and then just select FanDuel and DraftKings? Because I assume that's going to be most pertinent to a lot of people who are watching. If you guys want to sign up for Odd Shopper, there is a link below to sign up. It's been an invaluable resource for me in terms of helping me find bets. Also, a prediction from John Gotti, who says that Draymond will get ejected tonight.
Nah, he just got ejected 2 games ago against Cleveland.
So who's got to be just why Draymond has to be happy in general? How much joy do you think he gets out of watching Jordan Poole be terrible this year?
Knew you were going there because it's so obvious. Yeah. I mean, now it looks like Draymond, like no one's going to think that he should have punched him like he did, but like Draymond's got a lot more pedigree than Jordan Poole, who just looks like honestly, he looks like a like a fringe NBA player. I know he's like a good scorer in buckets, but he doesn't really do anything well. So I used to be kind of high on Poole. I'm not anymore.
Here's a question. What makes people consider somebody a good scorer? Because Jordan Poole has always been somebody that's like, oh, cool, he could score a lot of points, but he does it massively inefficiently. It's the same thing where people are like, oh, this guy is a good shooter. It's like, all right, but he shoots 32% from three, which is well below league average. Like, is he really a great scorer, or is he just somebody who's willing to take a lot of shots and miss a lot?
That's fair. And I think both are right, because you're right. He's not like a great shooter, and you could say he's not a great scorer. But one thing that he's valuable at, which is why he's in the league, is creating his own shot. There aren't like a ton of guys that can do that. That's why those guys are valuable. They might not always be the best shot, and he's not shooting for a great percentage, but I think that's why he like carries that with him personally.
Some fantasy stat updates here. The leading scorer on the slate, still PJ Washington, up to 15 fantasy points for PJ Washington. And good news. So Joel Embiid, listen to this, Matt. 4 minutes into the game, Joel Embiid had 0 fantasy points. We are now 6 minutes into the game, and he has 11.75 fantasy points.
That sounds pretty good.
Joel Embiid, as soon as he got the foul trouble, Miles Turner, he is producing 2 fantasy points per minute for the game. So feeling pretty good about that. DeJounte Murray, for people who play DeJounte Murray in chat, we've seen a big uptick from him. So he is now also at 11.75 fantasy points. He's looking like one of the top options on the slate. And we've got our guy Bogdanovich up to 7.75, which is not bad considering his cheap price point here midway through the first quarter. But if we're looking here at some of the best odd shopper bets for tonight, and what is it that's up at the top there? That is Agbaji. Agbaji for under 9.5 points. And if you look at Agbaji, once again, another one of just these kind of line shopping situations where he is minus 102 right now at FanDuel, but he's minus 110 on Bet365, minus 115 on DK, minus 113 on Caesars, minus 134 on Pinnacle. So that's what really powers a lot of these market-based projections. When you see like every single book has a line way different than another one, that's where under 9.5 points for Agbaji definitely looks like it's a pretty sensible looking option for tonight. And then another one as well that's standing out is Keontae George for under 17.5 PRA. That's plus money on FanDuel. And then every other book has it juiced towards the under in some sort of way. Early results for the basketball games. Anything you're tilting so far, Matt?
Not really. I mean, it looks like, and with NBA, it's so hard to like tilt anything until the second half, at least, just because these games can go in so many different directions. And usually NBA games are competitive unless it's like a 20-point spread in one way or the other. So nothing really. I mean, I'm high on Murray and Bogdanovich. They're fine. So no complaints as of yet. I'm sure I'll have some in a little bit, though, if you want me to message you.
It's funny. Somebody in chat had brought up, imagine playing Maxey at 9K with Embiid. And I think Maxey actually ended up being popular on this slate. Here's what I think there's a lot of people who built lineups assuming Embiid was going to be out with Maxey and just left Maxey in. Maxey's 21% owned today. That's very surprising to me with Embiid playing.
You said 25?
21.05.
That's for sure surprising to me too. Higher than Embiid, like with Embiid in, obviously, doesn't really seem right to me. Now, I get it in the sense that like he's been really good and he's still under 9K, but I'm not really trying to pay for his upside coming off 2 upside games with Embiid in.
Yeah, and people in the chat seeing Stephen Reynolds saying that 3.25 fantasy points for Tyrese Maxey so far. Yeah, that's a pretty staggering ownership, and that's one where I think it kind of happened like the inverse of what I thought was going to happen with Embiid, where I thought Embiid was going to be lower owned because of the lateness of the news. I think instead, people who like thought Embiid was going to play were playing him anyway, and then there was these other people who were building lineups thinking he was going to be out and just kind of stuck with Tyrese Maxey and never really made any kind of alterations.
Yeah, I'm with that. Like Embiid, I mentioned, was a guy I really, really liked if Embiid was out, but not so much with Embiid in on a slate with just a lot of good options.
Big start for LaMelo as well. Basically, all of the high-priced options other than Maxey are doing well so far. We've got DeJounte Murray up to 19 fantasy points, LaMelo up to 19 fantasy points. We've got Joel Embiid up to 17 fantasy points. So, yeah, if you paid up for somebody who was not Tyrese Maxey in the first slate of games, a pretty good chance that they are going ahead and having a pretty big start to the game so far. We've got just a couple minutes left to go here. I'm going to make sure that we don't have any questions that we missed from the Discord channel. And we do. We've got MJazz22 asking, how many minutes do we think Chris Paul plays today? I think he's going to play a really big role. And I know people are a little bit down on Chris Paul because he hasn't shot the ball well so far this year. But without Chris Paul, without Steph Curry out there, I think Chris Paul is going to play a pretty significant role here for the team. But what is your expectation for minutes, and in particular minutes ceiling? Like what is the most possible minutes you could see Chris Paul play?
Good question. I am with you here that I think Paul plays a really nice role tonight. It doesn't look like Curry's going to be out for too long, so I don't think they're going to mind running Paul out for like a little bit longer. He's not going to be a guy that plays like 40 minutes, but I think you're going to see him a few minutes over what he usually plays. And at that price point without Curry, he again looks really, really appealing to me.
Yeah, we have him projected for 31 minutes, which I think is a very fair projection for Chris Paul. But if you're asking me, is he more likely to play more or less than 31 minutes? I think he's more likely to go over that number than under. If it's a competitive game, I think they probably push Chris Paul to play more in the fourth quarter. The only way that I think that he would end up playing like 24, 25 is like an injury, foul trouble, like a massive blowout.
Yeah, I think we see that pretty much eye to eye.
Let me make sure there's no other questions. And if not, we have run out of time here. Yeah, no other questions. So speak now or forever hold your peace. And yeah, we'll see. Also, if Andrew Wiggins doesn't have a big game today, I don't know what is wrong with him, but he's back to the guy. You do remember when he signed the contract suspension with the Timberwolves and they told him like, hey, we're going to pay you, but you have to promise you're going to get better. And he was like, I promise. And then he just didn't. Are we back to that for Andrew Wiggins? Does he need to promise somebody's going to get better?
He's got to play well tonight, like to give me any hope in him here. I mean, I don't know. I'm not like confident in it, but I think at 5K on DK, I'm willing to take the shot. And probably burns me, but that's the nature of the beast. All
right, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you've not done yet, do us the favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Good luck with all your lineups tonight, Joel Embiid. Keep it up, man. It was the rocky start, but he's really humming now. So love to see it. So guys, good luck with all your lineups. Hopefully one of us takes down a GPP tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow night.